nothing. See in your eyes when you're bluffing. I'm loving the traps you setting. Raise the stakes, I'm betting on me all the way. Next, onto the podium, a winner stay. Can no one take my place? Telling me.
All right, everybody, what it do?
Yo.
Where There's Smoke, episode 6.
Yeah, to 6 already. Dude, this
It's moving along fast.
yeah, I almost think it's moving like at a perfect pace. Like it's not too slow and it's not too fast. I feel like if you try to, jump into like 50 episodes in the first month, you're gonna snag a few things. But I think this is a perfect pace for where we're at.
Yeah, we're getting consistent. I think like the audio, the video is getting better and better. The conversation's getting a little bit every time. So yeah, it's a nice progress.
Yeah. And today we
have a special guest.
You want to introduce yourself?
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
How you guys? I'm Donny.
So we got Donny Wills here today. It's our special guest. He's well known in the Kyle Buda area.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in this area?
About 13 years now.
Okay, you've been here a while.
Yeah. After I retired, I came here.
Okay.
And yeah.
Nice.
And where are you originally from?
Arizona.
Okay. I thought
I
you grew up in
Arizona.
Cali, or
yeah, I lived like a year in Cali before I joined the military. Like I graduated high school in this literally a one stoplight town in Cali.
Nice.
A bunch of orange groves and stuff. But no, Arizona. I lived in Arizona from I was first grade till like junior in high school. So
nice. What part of Arizona?
Kingman, the meth capital of the world. What?
Liberty Hill has something to say about that. I'm just kidding.
They might. But no, Kingman, Arizona. It's right there at the top, the northwest side of Arizona. Okay. Right before you hit like the Grand Canyon, it's about 40 minutes from Vegas.
Gotcha. I've been to Sedona. I think I told
Sedona's
you.
Gorgeous, man.
Sedona's. If it's one of those spots, like I don't know how to describe it, man. It's like you remember you were talking about like culture shock?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that times 100 out there.
Yeah.
What's so different about it?
Well, Sedona, it's really cool because like in the fall and the spring, it's gorgeous. But then in the summer and the winter, it sucks, right? Because it's like high desert. Mm-hmm. The summer, it's not tremendously hot, but it's still really, really hot. And then the winter, you get a ton of snow up there.
Right.
And it's horrible. But it still has that very small, quaint, like minor town feeling to it. And like everything there's like really old. And there's just gorgeous mountains and trees. And it's a really nice place to visit. I don't know about living there, but like a nice little weekend visit. It's a pretty cool place to go.
Yeah, where we went, you could see the guy that invented LASIK surgery, the LASIK eye surgery.
Yeah,
he lives out there. Pretty nuts.
So it's just like too like slow paced for you, or what?
Yeah, it's a very very slow place. Like it's very slow paced like area. You know what I mean? This everyone goes somewhere, but they don't have a rush to get there. It's very laid back community, good retirement community, I guess you can say.
So it's like north south Arizona. Or, like how far is it from Phoenix?
It's about an hour from Phoenix, give or take, maybe a little bit less.
Right.
So it's kind of, Arizona's not huge like Texas, I mean, you can drive across Arizona in 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. So it's probably like an hour from Kingman, 40 minutes or so from Phoenix, give or take.
Yeah.
Like it's not far from Flagstaff. Like Flagstaff's gorgeous, especially during the winter. Like the ski resorts and stuff there are amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not an Arizona Cardinals fan, right?
No. No.
I know their fans are really about their teams out there.
Dude, they are, man. When I grew up, Arizona Cardinals were shit, man. They were trash. And they're not like an amazing team now. They've gotten a lot better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I know. I didn't really grow up being an Arizona Cardinals fan. I grew up being a Denver Broncos fan.
Right.
One of the first games I ever saw was a Cowboys game. It was a Super Bowl. It was Cowboys, and I can't remember who they played. It was the first football game I ever saw.
Wait, your first game was a Super Bowl game?
It was the first, Super Bowl game. And I didn't understand. Dude, I know.
How do you beat that?
Bro, I was like in second grade.
That's wild, dude.
And I didn't understand why everyone's so hyped up about this game. Why everyone's like, I'm like, dude, it's just football. Like I played Pee-wee here and there, street football with the friends. And I understand why everyone's so hyped up about it until like later on it was one of those things that like clicks and hits you in the back of the head. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's a Super Bowl, And then from there I kind of started learning about it, and then I picked my team. And I didn't want to be a bandwagoner. Like at the time, the Cowboys were the Americans' team, and everyone loved the Cowboys. And I was like, I don't want to be like picking the team that everybody loves. And so I picked the Broncos at the time.
Right.
And they were not the greatest team then. It took like another 5-6 years until they finally went to the Super Bowl with Elway. And then it was like everyone's like, oh my God. And then bandwagoners came and all that stuff, But
I was kind of low key that because I think at the time you had Shannon Sharp. Romanowski, I think, was on y'all's team too.
I was one of the first. Remember we used to collect football cards?
Yeah.
I was one of the first football cards I ever got was a Shannon Sharp holographic one. You know, and now I look back on it like I don't know where that card's at, man. You know, I probably
it's a Roger Staubach, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard of this
cares,
guy.
You know, I was a second grade kid running around with football cards
Babe
in my
Ruth.
pocket.
That's a girl's name.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Who cares, you know?
Give me a stick of
Gerald
bubble gum.
Strawberry,
Yeah,
rookie
right.
cards and stuff, you know. But yeah, and that was one of the first cards I ever got. It was one of the holographic ones. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
And and it was just it was something about watching them play. You know, Elway was the comeback kid, man. And he would go into these games and he would be getting his ass kicked, and then all of a sudden he would just in the fourth quarter just boom, 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 pump out those touchdowns and win games. And I was like, it was exhilarating to watch it.
Yeah.
It was really, really cool. But yeah, dude, it was a whole different environment. I will say when I was in high school, I was a Diamondbacks fan.
Okay.
Right? But that was like that new team in Arizona. Had Randy Johnson. He hit that fucking pigeon.
Dude, Randy Johnson is wild. You know who he is? He's he's like the tallest baseball player that ever lived.
He like looks like Jeff
How tall is he?
Foxworthy.
He's 6'10".
He's tall as shit.
6'10", bro. Just throwing 100-mile-an-hour balls, dude. Just killing birds and shit out there. It's pretty wild.
I think didn't that bird thing happen during the World Series or something? Where
I
he
don't
threw that
remember,
and
man.
that pigeon came flying
Dude,
across the front and it just poof.
If there's a video of it, literally just him at the mound, you know, getting ready for the next pitch, winds up, and it's probably 100 miles because he didn't throw anything he didn't throw like 80s or 70s. He was throwing heat, and this bird just, you can see it right there, just gets right in the crosshairs and boom, just turns into like a big thing of feather. It looked like a cloud. It almost looked cartoonish because you're just like, what are the odds? You know, what is the probability of a bird getting hit by a ball? And
Yeah, it's
it
crazy.
happened. Yeah.
That was a pretty crazy game.
Yeah. So you moved down to Kyle, you said like 13 years ago?
Yeah, 13 years ago.
It wasn't the city that it is now.
No, dude. When I moved to the Austin area, well, because before I moved to Kyle about 13 years ago, I was stationed in Fort Hood, and when I first came to Austin area, it ended at where 290 like Ben White is.
I remember.
Like the Motor Mile wasn't there.
Yep.
None of that stuff was there. Matter of fact, Willie Nelson was still holding his concerts in South Park Meadows. Like none of that was there. And when I retired and moved to the Kyle Butte area, man, I tell you, like a lot of stuff wasn't here.
Yeah.
And I've watched it just consistently, boom, 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 just keep growing. And it's like there's no stopping. There's no end in sight.
Yeah.
Like it used to be when you left Austin, you got to Butte, there was a truck stop. Can't remember the name of that truck stop back in the day. It's now Pinballs now.
Right.
There was a truck stop, and that's how you knew you were in Butte, but there was nothing else.
Right.
And you have to get off the highway and drive down this long little, like, 2-lane, shitty-ass country road, and you get to downtown Butte. And Kyle was the same way. If you blinked, like H-E-B, Walmart, none of that stuff was there at the time. Lowe's, I think they just started building the hospital.
Right.
And, like, if you blinked, you passed Kyle, and then all of a sudden you're in San Marcos.
Yeah.
And now it's just literally from, Gerald, Texas, all the way down through the whole Austin metro. It's just everything it's just growing exponentially. You know, it used to be like hey, we're gonna go to Dripping Springs, man. It's like, fuck, that's far away. Now it's like Dripping Springs is like, hey, yeah, it's like
It's like a 10-minute drive.
we're gonna go
from
this
here.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you pick Texas over, like, going back to Arizona or like somewhere else?
Oh, family.
Okay.
So my family still lives in Arizona. The ones that are still alive and whatnot. And when I was in the military, I met my current wife, Geneva, and we had a choice right before I was about to get out. They put me on orders to Fort Drum in New York, and my fat ass don't like cold. I'm like, nah, man.
Where's that again?
In New York,
Oh, in New
Drum?
York.
Oh yeah, no, like that's where Alaska goes to do their cold weather training. Like it's cold as fuck there, and I'm not all about that. I spent a little bit of time at West Point, training cadets up there, but I was during the summer. I couldn't imagine what it was like during the winter. And so I was like, nah, dude, I don't want to go to New York. By the time I already got injured. And so I was kind of in this weird transition phase of whether or not I was going to fight my retirement or fight my medical orders to get out or just get out and retire. And I ended up being like, hey, you're going to go to Fort Drum? No. I'm like, I don't want to go. So just go ahead and retire me out. And so I took my retirement and stayed here. And yeah, it was just it was an easier thing because I kind of been growing, like not really growing up around here, but lived around here for so long, it was just easier to be like, yeah, hey, we're going to stay here rather than move back to Arizona where I didn't know anything.
Right.
You know, where I didn't know anyone. All my friends and family that were there before in that area had already moved out and left, gone to bigger, better things. So it was easier to transition from Fort Hood here down to Austin than it was from Fort Hood back to Arizona.
Right. Gotcha. And as far as like, because I grew up here in Austin, I was born and raised. You're Central Texas as well, raised out here.
Since 2000.
Yeah. And for me, like I grew up on the north side, so I've pretty much only have known like probably from Mopac up north, and so I never saw the development like on the south end of town, even though I have family in William Canyon.
Yeah.
But like when you decided to go, like okay, you could have chose either side. What was so appealing about Kyle that you were just like, this is the spot?
It was a cost thing.
Okay.
It came down to money, right? Because up there in north, like Round Rock, Cedar Park, 'cause we used to have a house in Cedar Park.
Because even back then, early on, those places were already somewhat starting to develop with like, it was developed down here a little bit, but like even more so up there. Those were already like considered North Austin, whereas Kyle and Buda weren't considered South Austin.
South Austin was still like south of Austin, like Kyle Buda was still the affordable area, right?
Gotcha.
And when I got out of the military, I was making $36,000 a year if I was lucky, you know. So it became an affordability thing. We looked around up Round Rock and all that stuff, and just rent up there was just too high, you know, for what we were wanting to live in. And we found a house down here in Kyle. And also, what happens is my wife's my in-laws, my father-in-law and mother-in-law, they used to live in Round Rock when I met my wife, and then they got a house down here in Kyle.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just kind of like, well, they're already here, so we're gonna go down here and kind of live in this area, you know. And it was a couple decisions into it, but that was basically it. And I don't regret it. You know, we live on the backside of Kyle, almost, you know, between Kyle and Driftwood out here. You know, so we got a nice area to live in. It's not too developed out yet, but there's a lot of development coming out here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can see it. Man. I feel like every time we come down this way, I'm like, that's a new building or a new restaurant that just opened. I feel like new stuff is just opening on like a weekly basis. I
Dude, yeah, the economic development plans that keep getting pushed out to the community are just ridiculous. You know, if we got 10 years ago, if we got the Whataburger, everyone's like, oh my God, that's so awesome.
that was it, right?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
It was like,
if you got a Chili's in your town, dude, you were made.
You were made, right? You know, it's like Chili's now, but now we have the restaurants like Kava and Trader Joe's, and there's rumors of Aldi coming here. There's rumors of a Top Golf coming here. There's rumors of so many restaurants and developments and businesses coming here. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I remember around 2005. When Cabela's came, that was like a huge deal, and now it's no one really. It's just not a thing.
Yeah. When Cabela's was built out there, right when he came over 35, and you have them big giant lights in the sky. It's how you knew you were gonna hit Cabela's the exit, because you pass those lights and boom, Cabela's is there. And that was all that was there at the time. Like there was the Cabela's, and I think that old HEB that's there, and then the gas station, like that little strip mall area.
Right.
And that was it. Like it was still fields that way and fields this way, and there was nothing here. And and it's blown up. And now they developed out half of Cabela's parking lot. They got Mavericks and Freddy's, and they all the strip mall stores. They got Logan's, Roadhouse. They got all kinds of stuff there, and it's a lot better because 5 years ago you had to leave town to go to Austin to go eat, right? You know, like, hey, we're gonna go out to dinner, and it was like a half an hour.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, you had to get all dressed up, get all fancied and stuff, drive in the nice car to drive to Austin, you know. Mm-hmm. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, you really don't have to leave here no more, even to go shopping and shit. You know, it's like you had the one Walmart, and I don't think at the time it was a super Walmart. Yeah, I don't remember, but you had the one Walmart here, and you had the one small HEB. And it was like everybody around here shopped there, and it's just you would drive into Austin to go to HEB, you know, or go to Target or Walmart and stuff, and it was just such an ordeal to get the whole family in the car to drive over there and do that. And then they built it all here, and it's just like, yeah, dude, you know, like cool, Target's here. Like I don't have to, like now I just throw on a pair of sweatpants and walk into Target. You know, wife makes fun of me because that's not Target attire.
What's funny is like. You go to like I stayed in Columbus for a little bit, Columbus, Texas, like the halfway point between Houston and Austin, dude. Mm-hmm. And I worked at the HEB pantry. I don't know if it's like a mini
mini HEB kind of.
And it's funny because you're like you can travel through there now, and it's like almost there might be some minor upgrades, but like the progress
hasn't
like,
grown near the way
like
here. Yeah,
I mean you're stuck between two cities, and it's almost like
it's basically mini LA. Stop moving here.
Pretty much, and you'd be surprised why that hasn't grown that much. Because I mean, it sits right there on the 10 and sits on was it 290 or whatever?
Yeah,
Or
it's
71?
like I-10 and 71.
Yeah.
It's literally it's like if
It
you
sits in a hazy mist. I feel like the Salem witch trials could be hosted there.
Bro, I'm not joking. I think I told you I was like, man, like at nights, dude, I felt like vampires would come out in that city. And
It's dark there.
It's dark, and the only time you're stopping in that town is to either get gas or a quick bite to eat, and then you're out.
Yep.
The further east you go in Texas, like the more like eerie it gets at nighttime.
I
Right?
always feel like though those small towns are like those. It's just full of people that just they didn't they got somebody pregnant and then they stayed in those towns because they're like, well, this is kind of where we're at now.
Well, yeah, like Kilgore, Texas, and
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
like way out there in East Texas.
Yeah, you're just like, well, this is where my dad was here and my grandpa too. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, damn, yeah, that's got to keep the generation going. But yeah, those small towns, like they as much as like they don't grow. I think that's why I like them because they kind of like. They know the happy medium between what's over, what's.
But it's like there's not even healthy growth there on some of those towns.
That's true.
There
But
needs
it's
to be a
one
little
of
bit
those
of
things
healthy
like
growth.
I get what you're saying because I like those areas too. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like staying here in Kyle is because it's still small enough that you know a lot of people.
Right.
You know that you get to know people, you get to know your neighbors and stuff like that. And even though Kyle's population is probably well over 60,000 people now plus, I know a ton of people around here. We're pretty well established around this community. And so I know when things go on in town,
Right.
and I kind of know what, like my kids growing up here are going to grow up safe, because of the people we know, and it's, I get it. I don't think I could live in Austin Central because, no.
Too much going on.
Yeah,
man,
way too much going on.
I remember the days on Runberg.
Yeah, I remember sitting on Runberg one day,
Yeah.
right there at Runberg, and I can't remember the intersection, but it's right where the Chinatown is. Where all the Chinese.
You're kind of by Olin and 183.
Yes, yeah, like right there. I was sitting in my truck, and all of a sudden I hear something. I look back, and dudes are stealing shit out of the back of my truck. And I was like, "The fuck, dude!" Like at a stoplight, dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, what the hell are y'all doing?" They just took off running. Like it's like that's what you do. And I'm like, "No, dude, we're not going down to Runberg. Fuck
It's
that,
so
dude.
funny because
I'm gonna get a drink. Y'all want something?
I'm good.
Water or anything?
Give me there's root beers in that fridge in the back. Yeah, please.
So when I was a kid, like I said, I was born here in Austin, and so this is all I've ever known. And so Runberg, like we were there for like probably until my kindergarten, and it's so funny too, like when you see like some of these houses that are getting renovated or like getting flipped, and you look at them, you're like, dude, I know like there was like a death around the corner, and like now this house is worth $500,000. I'm like, man, I'm not against it. So a lot of people are against growth, and I can see their argument why, but then I'm just like at the same time, it's like this is bringing new life to an area that's it's some of those houses are depleted and stuff like that, which I get.
Well, it's like Chacon, like down around
East Austin.
Yeah, East Austin. There used to be a time, man, like back in the early 2000s, we come here and hang out on 6th Street and party and stuff like that, and they'd be like, "Hey, you don't go on that side of 35.
Right.
Like this skin complexion, you don't go over there.
After 6,
After 6, you don't walk down those roads. Like you just don't go over there. You're gonna get jumped. You're gonna get beat up. You're gonna get mugged. You're gonna get robbed or something like that.
Yeah.
And now you drive down East Austin, and there's just like basic white bitches all over down the road in yoga pants walking their fucking dogs. And you're like, dude, I remember like them finding a body over in this fucking area, and they've changed it. And I think they've changed for the better, like a lot of people hate the gentrification thing right there, and I get it, we'll get political on this stuff later. But I think it is for the better because it brought that area up. It brought a higher tax revenue, a higher tax base. It brought, a lot more business in the area. It made it a lot safer.
Right.
Now granted, there's still places like, like off of Malfreyas and St. John's or St. Elmo's area like that, and even St. John's that are still really, really bad.
Right.
But you can see as you go through there that they're starting to develop those, and they're starting to bring those houses, the values up and make it look nicer. Because there's nothing more crappy than moving next to a house and your neighbor doesn't have a mowed lawn, or there's 15 cars busted down the front lot. Like, dude, just get rid of them. You're never gonna fix them up, sell them for scrap, and kind of just mow your lawn. And you'd be surprised what a little bit of TLC does to a property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like flippers are a necessary evil, unfortunately.
They do some good, and then they do some really bad. Like, that house needs to tear down. That's it. I know you just cleaned it up, but damn.
I know you threw some bleach and paint on it, but bro.
There's, like I said, there's some areas that like. So again, the South Austin area. Like you said, like Logan, when he's came to like Cedar Park, and he's like, man, it feels What did you say? Like, it feels different, like the environment.
Yeah, because like in 2000, I moved to Lockhart, and I was 8 at that time, so pretty much grew up in like South, and I would always go to San Marcos. So Lockhart and San Marcos was kind of like my area, and like those areas have grown quite a bit, but also Kyle and Buda have really blown up way more, and I would go there sometimes back in the day, but I really never went up north. I went to Hutto a few times. We had like family up there back in the day, but like going to the north, it's almost like because subdivisions in Central Texas hit up north first,
Right.
and it seems like something about the culture of like the mall, like you were saying, where there's a Target, and HEB, and everything you need within a certain radius. It's like when everybody's living in the housing that's all the same, all real close together. Everything, all the amenities you need are real close together. Everyone's real safe and secure because the police is like real on top of shit in these cities and stuff. And it's like maybe not in Austin, like the big city, but like in the small little suburbs, the police are like everything's like real clean. And just so it almost is like, do y'all deal with like like country folk problems? Like I don't even know. It's just like, you know what I mean?
No,
like
I get
you know,
it.
it's like
I get it because
yeah.
I lived in the country for a little while before I went to the military, and I get it. You know, like you have there's city problems, and then there's country folk problems.
Yeah,
you know?
And then there's small town, which is not necessarily country, but like small town
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see the different culture, and it's almost like up there, it's more of like everyone's like real clean cut, and just so we're like on the South, it's not like everyone's a freaking criminal, but it's just like
a little more relaxed.
it's more relaxed. People are okay with being like ghetto and like homely a little more.
Yeah.
And like maybe I feel like people are a little bit more themselves, even though maybe it might be a good thing. But like you kind of you walk in the convenience store and you're like, no one's trying to like hide who they are. It's like, all right, you're granny who just got out of the shower, and you're the local drug dealer, and you're the guy who just wants his lotto ticket, and it's like everyone just like, all right, whatever. But up north, it's like everyone has like the polo shirt and the khaki shorts, and it's like, are you being you, or are you being like a suburban
there you go
lookalike
so
type?
I think,
But I'm not. It's just like a different lifestyle, and to each his own. But it's like a different feel when you go up there.
and you're right, and going back to, I feel like when the smaller towns and the country folk, it's a little more authentic.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm getting at.
You
I
know,
think maybe
it's more authentic. So like you learn a different mentality from the city and the country.
life's just a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also, you got to realize, like in the city or in the country, like everybody's got these fucking problems.
Right.
Like everyone's got financial problems or marital problems or kid problems or whatever problems. Everyone's got it, and it. You're not really like, you're not like not flaunting it, I guess. And then you get in the city and it's a competition. It's like, hey, who can drive the nicer truck, or who can live in the bigger house, or who has the nicer suit? And it's like, bro, look, your $100,000 F450 is going to do the same job that my 1985 Toyota, pickup truck is going to do. It's going to get us from point A to point B to do what we need to do, and so it's more of a class competition when you start getting these cities. It's like, oh, well, my house is worth $1.8 million. And you're like, cool, my house is worth half of that, and it's bigger, like, or like, you want to pull out dicks and start measuring right now, dude? Like, you got a big dick. It's cool, awesome. Like, I don't care,
Yeah.
And so you start seeing those class things, and it gets, you start seeing, like, get out in Lakeway and Westlake and Rob Roy and Spanish Oaks and all these other places that, it's a class type thing, and you see that complete different persona where you can go out to Rob Roy and you can be like, hey, yeah, it's, $1,000 to replace that window, or that truck is going to be $100,000 or whatever, and people like, they want that ability to say, I got this, like Rolexes and shit. Like, dude, my Timex, the one I got in the military 20 years ago, still tells the same fucking time. I didn't pay $20,000 for it. I bought it for like $19.99 on the PX,
Right.
and still carried time this whole time,
Dude, hey, that feeling you got was the exact same feeling that I had when I walked into Whole Foods for the very first time.
It's
Bro,
weird. I can't stand the smell inside of Whole Foods. There's something they pump through the air. And
so let me explain Whole Foods. We're used to HEB, right? Like, and I'm not saying regular folks, whatever.
Yeah, regular folks.
People that make less than
You used to walk in and smell
50,
fresh tortillas.
Yeah. But when I walked into Whole Foods, dude, I felt like everybody knew I didn't make that much money. It's like, and I knew I was standing out when I asked for, like, where's the sodas, like Big Red or Dr. Pepper.
They don't have that.
They do not have that.
They don't.
They don't carry any of the stuff that, like, they're like, ew. Like, when I asked them that, they thought I talked to them like I was speaking Spanish. Like they were
Yeah.
like, no, dude. I feel like they had like in order to go to Whole Foods, you need to have like your credit check. Like that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like, dude. And like when I went in there, I was like, dude, everything's organic, and it's I don't know. Like for me, like even the houses that the people that live in to go shop there, I don't. It just doesn't, it feels different. Like I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like the people I had friends that shop at Whole Foods that they make a decent living, and you walk in their house and you're like, this does not feel, you know what I mean? It's almost like that. You ever seen that picture of Hillary Clinton when she walked into someone's home for the first time? There's a picture of her, like the shock in her face when she walked into someone's house, like
Average house. Yeah.
yeah, like oh my god, like y'all live like this,
Y'all ceiling's 8 foot. Like, what
Yeah.
bro. Because the kitchen was so narrow, and she was campaigning, and so she was like, "Oh, I'll meet the average American,
the average
yeah."
folks.
And she walked in, she was just like, "Oh my
Culture
god,
shock.
yeah." She's like, "I would never."
So speaking of your time in the military, what encouraged you to join?
Here, hold on. Let me take my jacket off because it's hot in here.
Mm.
It's a little warm. Don't get turned on, Josh.
I'll try not to. You got that censored black?
So where I grew up in California, or Arizona and California, there wasn't a whole lot to do, right? You know, like in Arizona, like you worked for.
And did you feel pressured to like make a career choice or something that was going to be beneficial right away instead of like wasting time after you?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. It was you only had like a couple options to do. Like, and when I lived in Arizona, it was either sell meth because that's what hey, that's what they do there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Work at the local Walmart or Safeway. There really wasn't anything
Long-term
yeah,
career.
long term, right? And even though I did really good on grades, my family was dirt ass poor, and so college was never a thing. Now, granted, you learn nowadays that there's a ton of scholarships and a ton of grant money out there that's available to everybody, and you don't get educated on that stuff when you're younger, right? And so, excuse me, and then California the same way. You either drove like an hour to like the nearest big city like Visalia or Fresno or something like that, and worked there, or you worked in the orange fields, like
Something small time.
Yeah, it was nothing. There was nothing going on. It was orange fields for miles.
Right.
And so when the recruiter came to me, and I remember this day like the back of my head, I was playing on a Nintendo, mind you, right? This is 2002, bro, and I still had the original Nintendo. I was that poor. I couldn't get a PlayStation yet. And so I'm playing the Nintendo, and he kept fucking calling me and kept calling me and kept calling me. And finally I was like, dude, look, okay, I'll tell you what, if I come over there and listen to what you have to say, will you leave me the fuck alone? He's like, yeah. So next thing I know, I drive to the next big town, and I'm in this recruiter's office, and they're like, oh yeah, paid for college and this much bonus money, and you get choice of duty station, all this shit. And I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up? And so I raise my right hand. Next thing I know, I'm in Los Angeles at the MEP station. I'm doing.
I raised my right hand.
Yeah, they got me, dude. I'm on a bus on my way to
should've
Fort
kept that
Sill, and I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck did I do? And and so that's basically what happened. Is it was kind of that pressure of like, if I want to do something in my life, I wanted to get out of that cycle of poverty or being able to do stuff. That's what it was, right? And so. I joined the military. I ended up going to, I was 17 when I joined. By the time I left for basic, I just turned 18.
Oh, wow.
I went straight to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for training. It was what's called a one station unit training, OSUT. And basically means you do your basic and AIT in the same place. You go to bed one night in basic, you wake up next morning AIT with the same guys. And I spent like 16 weeks in Fort Sill doing training. And I left Fort Sill. I was home on leave for I think like 14 days or something like that, and I went to my first duty station, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And y'all want to talk about culture shock? I grew up on the West Coast, right? Surfers, blonde, like that. And here I find myself in back redneck woods of Tennessee and Kentucky, and at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne Division. And I get there and I'm like, hell yeah. Like this is it. I'm a made man. And they were like, nah, dude, you're going to Iraq, bro. And I found
How
myself.
long were you out of like the basic and initial training stuff before you were shipped off?
shit, 3 weeks altogether.
So you thought this is just gonna be regular?
Oh yeah, no,
It's
I
going
thought,
to be a breeze.
yeah, I thought like I'm 18 years old. I don't know shit, and
Yeah.
I thought like Iraq War kicked off and all that stuff, and I'm like, I ain't going nowhere, dude. You know, it's not that.
Oh,
You know,
shit.
there's 1 million people in the army, and you know,
what are the odds?
there's only 30,000 people going to Iraq. What are the odds? And I found myself sitting in Iraq. You know, like
How did you feel when they pulled your number?
Oh, dude, well, it's not really pulling a number.
Or
It's like your unit.
yeah,
Yeah.
how did
Oh, I
you-
was scared shitless, dude. I'm 18 years old, and this is my first time away from home, right? You know, like, granted, the once in a while sleepovers or the school
Were you
trip.
regretting getting into the army at any point or no? Like when that happened, you're like, I should have never done this. Or
Yeah,
you're like,
there was a couple times.
Yeah.
There was a couple times, and it was usually when, like, I was really homesick or something like that, or, like, shit just got really stressful, you know, or you're in the middle of a fucking firefight. That stuff kind of, you know, rolls through your head, and you're like, I don't want to be here, you know? And,
Yeah.
and it becomes that fight or flight type thing. And yeah, it was 3 weeks after, basically about 3 weeks after I left basic, because I found myself overseas, half a world away in another country, a hostile country. And the first fucking night I was there, we got in a really big firefight. Right. And I was like, yep, like
Your government.
Yeah.
We'll give you a Mustang and $20,000, but in 3 weeks you might not ever see that
you might not see
shit.
that shit again. Yep. But yeah, and it was a good time. I ended up spending a little while in Iraq, my first tour, because I met with my unit there. They'd already deployed before me. Came back. I was back for a few months. Ended up going to West Point for a little while to help train cadets. Came back, went to Iraq again. Came back, went to Iraq again, and did that cycle for the next 10 years.
Did you get to choose when you went back, or they made that
No,
choice?
not as a unit. Sometimes the Army would come down if they had a unit that was overseas. They would come down and request additional support. Right. So they'd be like, "Hey," and they would do it by what's called an MTO, right? So an MTO in the Army that tells you everything your unit's supposed to have. So you have equipment and personnel and stuff. And on this MTO, say for instance, like I was a 13 Bravo when I first went in the military, and they would say, "Hey, we need." 3 13 Bravo, 3 Oscars, which means they need 3 staff sergeants that were 13 Bravos to go overseas. And they'd come down to these units and be like, hey, do we have a volunteer? And there'd always be that grizzly ass staff sergeant that was divorced and just wanted the money. And he'd be like, yeah, I'll go. And so they would send him over there with another unit, and then he would come back eventually. You know, but most of the time you're deployed by either company or brigade or, you know, division. Like especially during the original war, it was like a whole division would go. And then as the war kind of went on, they would stop deploying whole divisions and start deploying what's called brigade combat teams. And that was just a brigade of soldiers that would go over there. And every now and then you get like a company or two that would break off and go do something else. But that was pretty much about it. Like you would come down with orders to deploy. You were stop lost. You couldn't get out of them. Like you're going on this deployment and see you later.
So when you're doing these trainings, right, and when you go out, when you're doing these tours and you come back, because I've never been in the military, so I have no experience. But I would imagine like the training and stuff like that, like when you come back home, right, for a visit, let's just say, are you able to switch off the military cap or the thinking? Because like for me, I don't know how that would affect me because I know my personality. So if I was to go and join them, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, but for you, were you able to switch it off when you got home, or was it 24/7 after
the military is really good about turning you into a robot, essentially, right? So that's what basic in AIT is to get they take any person that goes in there and they break you down into just mush,
right? And
then they mold you back up into a soldier, and so when you leave, like not when you leave, but when you go on leave, like vacation, right? You still have that mentality, like, because you're still a soldier 24/7. It's different for like reservists and guards and things like that.
Sure.
But you're still a soldier, so you still have that mentality of like, I got to get my hair cut and I got to shave my face and I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you know, and you still have that mentality built up. It took me a while after I got out to get rid of that mentality, to kind of like, I can't talk to civilians the same way I talk to my military compadres. There would be many times I would just kick my door open military, and they'd be like, "Hey, you fucking asshole!" and just start yelling at a soldier, because that was the military, military like there's a word for it.
Mindset.
Yeah, mindset. Thank you. Yeah, it's like the military mindset. You know, a lot of shit gets done by yelling and cursing, right? You know, and being like, that's what they taught you, kind of how to be a strong leader. And then it took a while after getting into the leadership role to be like, that's not the best way to leadership things. Right. And then it took even longer after I got out that I can't talk to normal people like that because you have choices. In the military, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Like, motherfucker yells at you and says to do something, you do it, or you get you get a counseling statement, or you get an Article 15 for failing to obey lawful orders. Like, you can get in trouble for it.
Right.
And then the first time I remember I was on the phone with this lady, I was helping my father-in-law order some materials for one of his job sites. And I was like, I called on the phone. I'm like, hey, where the fuck are my materials at? And she's like, sir, you don't talk to me like that. And hung up the phone on me. And I was like, the fuck you don't? And I called her back. And it took a little while. And finally, my father had to step in. And he like sweet talked her. And he's like, hey, I'm so sorry, you know. And I started realizing I can't do that shit, you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I mean,
Where the fuck's my pizza?
Yeah. There's a lot of things you do in the military that aren't normal in civilian life.
Yeah.
Like in the military, right? What would be my employees, right? My soldiers that are underneath me. I had to know everything that was going on in life 24/7. No matter what, I had to be all like, it was basically, if Private Joe Snuffy was married to Jane, I was the third wheel in their marriage. I had to know everything that's going on in their life, right? I had to know where that soldier was 24/7, 365 days a year. If that motherfucker decided he wanted to take a weekend trip to Dallas, right? I had to know where he was going in Dallas. I had to know what he was doing, who he was with, like the whole 9 yards into it, right? I had to verify their vehicles were safe to drive, and they had insurance, and they're paying their bills. Now, could you imagine your boss doing that shit now?
No.
Like every Friday, he's like, hey, I need to see your insurance card, and calls your insurance company to verify you're paying your fucking insurance. That's the military, right? And there's so much of that. Like, granted, there's people in it for a couple years that get out, easier transition. But when you spend so much time in that, and that's your daily life for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, you can't just get out and turn that switch off.
Right.
It takes a while to transition out of. And the military is one of the worst fucking things to transition out of. They're really good turning you into a soldier, but they suck at turning you back into civilians.
Wow. It makes you think about like athletes too. You know how sometimes there's like, that's all they like. Kobe, he played basketball longer than he was like before he was in the game. And it's just like, is that because I'm always like, does that person that like, is it the personality? Is it their soul? What is it about that person? Like if I was to join the military, would who I am now, would it have been just disappeared and Josh would have been like a new version and this is what it is for the rest of his life?
Either that or you would fail, you know? And there's guys, I had soldiers that were in their late 30s and early 40s. I mean, I was a staff sergeant when I was 24 years old. I had my own platoon when I was 25. Yeah. You know, and that's crazy to think about that. You know, you're still a kid and you're leading 52 plus people into combat, where they can die, and you're in your early 20s. Yeah. Like, meanwhile, dudes are in their early 20s are still down on 6th Street getting fucking raging drunk, and you're in Iraq with a whole platoon full of guys, you know, doing a raid on a compound or something like that, you know? And you would have soldiers in that platoon that were of every ethnic background, of every age, we had males and females, gays and straights. We had blacks and whites, and I had an Arabic dude that was with me. He was actually a soldier. He came here to America and joined the military to get his citizenship, but he was in my platoon, you know? You had everything in there, and it's a massive culture shock to do that, you know? Yeah. You look at a lot of companies nowadays, everyone's kind of the same, you know? Like they're, you know, like they have their own things. You don't have this huge diverse thing of, especially smaller companies, you know? But it was a massive culture shock doing that.
You think you would have done the military, or you would have lasted?
No.
No. I think you would have. I think you could. I think you would have.
I don't like people that are dumber than me telling me what to do.
Well, I mean that's life in general, but still.
That is life in general. You know, and it's
not all the time like the military.
Yeah. There are more college educated people in the military per capita than there is in the entire United States of America.
Why is that?
Because when you get promoted, right, when you're
trained and you're programmed to follow orders in both.
Well, pretty much, but when you go from private to specialist, which is E1, E4, it's kind of an automatic promotion, right? You hit your time and grade, and as long as you're not a complete fuckhead, they promote you, right? Well, go from specialist to sergeant is on a point system. You go in front of a board, they grade you on a point system. You have to turn in, you know, military education, civilian education, your PT test, your weapons qual. There's like all these things that go in there, give you a bunch of points, right? And then depending on how many people in the military are at that grade of that MOS, of that skill level, is going to depict the points, and you need so many points to get promoted. So there's a lot of times that when you go from sergeant to staff sergeant, those points are at the high 700s. So you can max out at 800. I don't think I ever met anyone that had 800 points.
Right.
But you can max out at 800 points. And so there's a lot of times to go from sergeant to staff sergeant, those points are like 770, 780. Well, in order to get those, you can only, in every category, you max out, right? So you might max out at like 100 points in military education, right? So you max everything out. Well, there's a category called civilian education. And in order to max those points out, you have to have an associate's degree at minimum, right? There's a lot of guys living in the military because college is free, it's paid for. They'll go out and they get their associate's degree. So I had my associate's degree in music because I was in music in high school. So I went and got my associate's degree in music. That's how I got my points so I can get promoted. But there's a lot of like your staff sergeants, all your officers have, degrees in education. A lot of, staff sergeants and above had degrees. And by the time you hit like first sergeant, sergeant major and things like that, you have to have a degree. Like they won't even, like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know from personal experience, but I'm pretty sure they won't let you go to Sergeant Major's Academy unless you have like a bachelor's or a master's degree or something like that. Like it's required.
Which is a 4-year degree.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah. So then it's a process.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Well, it's funny too, because like you can get your college degree in 18 months. You see all those little commercials like online college degree. There's not like granted they have like community colleges and things like that around the military bases, but most of the guys do it online. And it's like, yeah, I can get my associates in 18 months. Like, bro, when do you have fucking time for that, dude?
I was
like
going to ask you, I mean, if you're in
associates
Iraq,
take like 3 years,
if you're in Iraq for 9 months, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I went to Le Cordon Bleu when I was over in Iraq, just fighting and cooking.
I went to UTI, motherfucker.
Like, seriously. I mean, that's what I was thinking when you were saying that. I was like, when do you have time? Like, you're trying not to die, and you're over here trying to get an associate's degree. It's like,
well, there's a lot of time over there, right? Because if you have a really good leader, he's going to make time for you to progress your life, to get so you can get educated and progress your life. There's a bad leader is only going to hold you back. A good leader is going to help you move forward, right?
We can kill these poor, terrible sheep herders and get our education at the same time.
Pretty much, yeah. But it's funny because when you're over there, civilians only know what they see on the TV, right?
Right.
And so you see these things like, these shows like Cop Keating and Hornet's Nest and Saving Private Ryan and all that stuff, and you think that we're out there fighting 24/7 through trenches and all that shit. Not really, dude. Yeah. Like, honestly, like you would go out on like a 3 or 4 hour patrol and then you would come back. And then now you have the next 20 hours to beat your dick or go to college, right? And like, that was it. And you ate and like, you granted there were some guys over there would be out like QRF for 12 hours or they'd be on gate guard for 12 hours or, they might have like an extended patrol or they have to go out and do cordon knocks or things like that, to go do all these things. And so your time did fluctuate a lot, but you still had a lot of time to do stuff, right? Right. And so they'd bring MWRs over there and you would hang out and play pool and darts and karaoke and all kinds of stuff, so there was plenty of time. There was the only excuse you ever had over there to not do your education was just pure apathy or laziness, right? Because it was paid for and you had time.
Right.
It was just you didn't want to or you were just lazy as shit, There was really no real excuse not to get a degree.
Right.
Or you just had a bad leader that didn't like push that stuff onto you.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would definitely. See, my thing is this: like, man, if you have all that time, and it's not like you can go down to the gas station and just buy chips or whatever. You know what I mean? In my mind,
where you're at.
In my mind, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in my mind, when I'm thinking Iraq, I'm thinking you're just in the mountains. You might be on a base that's probably the size of a neighborhood, maybe a little bit smaller. But it's not like you can just go. To me, I can't go hit the Lakeline Mall and enjoy that time. I'm like, how do you kill time?
There's a lot of ways, man. When one of my tours, we stayed at the old Bath Party headquarters in Union 3, and it was like 6 stories, and the IT guys there had rigged up a set of servers that basically everyone's rooms plugged into for the internet, and we played giant like death matches with Halo for fucking hours on end.
Damn.
Dude.
Which one? 3, 2?
The first one, bro.
First one?
Come on, man. I'm old school.
Hey, I'm just making
Blood
sure.
Gold show.
You were playing
Canyon,
Nintendo in
yeah.
2000, so I don't know.
Yeah, but and that's what we do. We do stuff like that, and then a lot of bases, the bigger ones had like PXs and stuff, which is like kind of what a gas station is here, a convenience store. And so you would just be like, hey, I'm not nothing to do. I'm gonna go down to the PX, and you would get chips and sodas and drinks and things like that.
Yeah.
When you're in the smaller cops, it really sucked because the only time you get those type of amenities was when you went into the big base on a patrol or something like that.
Right.
So I spent a little bit of time on a cop my first tour. My second tour I basically spent in most of the red zone. My third tour I spent in the green zone, which is just a massive military base in its own. I had everything Aussies and Brits and Georgians, and we had the U.S. embassies and all the embassies there. So there's a lot more things to do. I mean, they had fucking pools and shit you can go swim in. My fourth tour I spent in JCC. Basically, I lived for like 6 months out in Iraq with a bunch of Iraqis, with a couple Americans, and we were the coordinating group between the Iraqi army and the American army. And then my last tour, I spent on one of the largest land bases. It was Balad in Iraq, one of the largest land bases in the world. And it had fucking everything, dude. It didn't matter. It was massive. And then by the time we were collapsing out of Iraq and going home.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It sounds good, but like I said, I'm just like, I'm Rumberg. Rumberg Leander. That's all I know.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, man. I mean, if you got rid of the fucking horrible, horrid heat, it'd be 120, 130. If you got rid of that and you got rid of the sand and, of course, being shot at, it wasn't a bad place.
So Runberg.
Why do you think we were over there in the Middle East for so long? Because run it by me again. You were only ever stationed in Iraq? But we were all over the Middle East.
Yeah, we were all over the Middle East.
What was going on with all that?
There was a lot of turmoil over there, to be honest with you, right? And some of it we had every right to have our nose into, and some of it we didn't. There's a bunch of mixed reviews about that, and a lot of people just kind of lump it into one, and it's one giant war, and it really wasn't, because we went to Afghanistan because of the Twin Towers.
Right.
Fully warranted. Those fuckers attacked us. We went over there and started fucking them up. We went to war with Iraq based on the premise of WMDs. And, whether or not they had WMDs or not, there's still some discrepancies, because there is papers out there that say they found them, but they're like in Muthana airfield. There was a sarin gas missiles that were there. They just couldn't move them, and then there's papers.
That's just crazy, because we have things. Let's like if someone says the U.S. has weapons, let's invade them.
Yeah, well, they had weapons they weren't supposed to use.
Huh?
You got to keep in mind Saddam back in the...
But, we have weapons that we're ready to use at any time.
Yeah, but we don't use our weapons on civilian populations. Okay, let me take that back, because we do. let me rephrase that. We don't
the problem
intentionally do
of thinking there?
Huh?
You see the problem of thinking there? Like, what...
But he was intentionally genociding the Kurds.
This has been brought up before, but it's like, what is America's obligation? We feel obligated to the world. It's like, who are we doing a favor when we do these things?
No, I don't, and that's part of what I don't get. I believe America should be first. I think we should.
Don't worry, we're putting ourselves first.
I think we should. Well, I think we should, solve our homeless problem here. I think we should solve our political corruption problems. I think we should solve all of our problems at home first.
You know what I think the issue is?
Before we start going out.
We don't produce anything that the world wants to consume anymore. Other than like our entertainment, but like we don't produce anything tangible to get paid for.
Not really.
So the only way that we make money, or the main way that we make money, is by going to war.
Yeah.
And by beating other people down and taking their resources, and
which we still do. There's a lot of stuff we do export, right? We do export a lot of grains and steel, like raw materials that we export out to countries like China and Taiwan and places like that to fabricate them into something that's tangible. But I do 100% agree with you, because there's at one point, there's all these people go around, and there's all the boomers and stuff, and they're like, I wish America was back like it was in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Well, what they fucking fail to forget is in the 40s, the entire world infrastructure was fucked, and the only country that really didn't get fucked was America. So it takes about 30 years to rebuild an infrastructure, right? So we had gone through during World War II and just laid waste to Europe and laid waste to fucking Russia. Well, we didn't lay waste, but like all these countries had just got fucked up and their infrastructure was gone. Right. China and Japan, all stuff, their infrastructure was gone. So they all came to us and said, hey, we need these materials to be, steel.
That's why it was so good for so long, because the rest of the world couldn't do shit.
Exactly. They relied on us.
Yeah.
And then when it became in the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden these countries started, they rebuilt their infrastructures.
They don't need us anymore.
Now they don't need us as much anymore. And we rely on them, right? We rely on them like we rely on China to produce a lot of stuff for us, and there's a lot of back and forth, but I do agree with you that it's not as reliant as it used to be, and we have to assert our dominance somehow, and the way we dominate is our military.
Yeah.
And we're basically like I think, in my opinion, we're the modern day British Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
have our hands
Israel's
in
our little
everything.
Robin sidekick. Hey, I'm here.
Yeah, pretty much.
beat up the bad guys for me.
And it comes down to those other mentalities of like, well, if no one else is going to do it, I have to do it type thing, right? You know, and so it's like that's what got us in trouble in Vietnam. You know, it's like a communist country. Well, who gives?
I think people are thinking that about us now. No one else is going to take out the USA. That's what all these other countries like China, North Korea, and Iran and Iraq, they're thinking, oh, no one, this big bully on the block, no one's going to fucking take him out. Sooner or later, one of these, all the little countries have all taken their little shots, but now they're like, what if we all band together and just say, fuck you?
And there's a potential for that.
I think that's what, in there, the BRICS was like the new...
Yeah, the
that's like kind of a start of that.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to get off the ground because Saudi Arabia's tried that for years, you know, trying to get the world off of the dollar standard. They've tried that for years. I don't think that's going to get off the ground anywhere. You know, maybe
they might have a chance if they give up
probably not in our lifetime.
The leopards.
Yeah. And China's too dependent on our consumerism to go to war with us.
Well, yeah, and the Temu's not going to get here by itself.
Fucking, yeah, Wish.com and Temu, yeah, they ain't getting here. You know, so I think economically we're allies, but politically we're not aligned, you know, and it's always like that. I mean, you look back through time, it's always somebody's teetering somebody. Right now it's the argument over the Taiwan, you know, the country Taiwan. And
why is Taiwan so valuable?
Well, it's not that it's valuable, it's land. And Taiwan used to be, from my understanding, it used to be part of China, and then they had their own revolution and they broke off, and they were like, hey, yeah, we're going to be our own country. And China's like, no, you're not, you still belong to us. And then a bunch of other countries are like, yeah, no, we're going to recognize Taiwan as their own country. Right. But China still wants to control Taiwan. And I believe Taiwan still uses the China currency and like all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of...
So it's a principle thing.
Pretty much,
that's what's going on in Hong Kong, too. Like Hong Kong, the city, is trying to separate from China, the country, because like China is like... I'm not sure what kind of government they are, but they're communist. And Hong Kong is like, they're
very democratic.
Because they were under Britain rule for like so long... And then it was a British territory, and then it was supposed to switch over to China control. But the people in Hong Kong were like, no, fuck that. We've been living democratically and like pretty much like they do in Britain so long here, and we're more or less like modern, like Western society. We don't want to go back to... So that's been a big thing over the last like 5 or so years.
Shit, it's been longer than that, man.
Has it?
Hong Kong? Yeah, dude.
No, well, Hong Kong was under British rule for like 70 years, but it was it was within the past 5 or so years, like the late 2000 teens, when it was supposed to shift back, and they did it. And that's when it became a hot issue again.
It's been a hot issue for a while. They wanted to shift back, and China wants them to shift back, and they don't. It's kind of been a hot issue, and it hasn't been one of those ones that's kicked anything off, because it's one of those things like, you know, there's a hornet's nest there and you don't want to fuck with it, but you got to deal with it eventually. And you don't want it to get too big that you can't deal with it. And so they kind of sit there and try to pick off one hornet at a time to try to keep in control. And whether or not anything happens of that, I don't think it is. And then you look at everything that's happened now in our world landscape, like Russia, for instance, right? Everyone thought Russia was this massive superpower, and they kept boasting, and all of a sudden they get in a fight with Ukraine, and Russia gets the shit kicked out of them. Yeah. And they're not as big of a superpower as we thought they were.
I mean, if you figured if Russia was that big, they would have
finished the war already.
And in the first 6 months,
they would have mowed over them. It's like we did in Iraq, right? We rolled over in Iraq. We rolled Iraq in like 3 months.
There's something suspicious about that war, though, because we're giving Ukraine so much money.
Oh, yeah.
So much money.
But we give money to a shit ton
Maybe
of
that's
countries.
Keeping them going in the war. If we wouldn't have supported them, maybe Russia would have won. It's one of those things where it's like a proxy war. Like if we wouldn't have supported them with all this money, Russia would have steamrolled them like we were all thinking they should have. Yeah. So it's this illusion of like, oh, Russia's having trouble with like a small country. But it's like, well, we're backing them and giving them all the resources they can fucking handle. So it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever played one of these little iPhone games where there's like the territories and you try to like spread your territory over.
Risk.
Yeah, but there's like even simpler ones where it's just like, you have a station and they have a base, and then there's like a bunch of neutral territories, and you try to move your. Basically, it's like it's just like a numbers game, but it's who spreads their color faster than the other color. But it's like if you have your base that has an infinite number, and you're spreading it to the little one, it's like we just keep funneling resources to Ukraine to keep them propped up. It's like, it's like Russia would have steamrolled them if not.
That's the type of wars we've been fighting for 70 years.
Yeah. So is it really Russia versus Ukraine, or Russia versus us?
Well, like you said, it's a proxy war, right? Because we're in what's called the Great Peace, right? This is the longest period in human history where we haven't had a major war, right? Iraq and Afghanistan wasn't a major war. It was a war for the U.S., but it wasn't a major war. A major war is considered a world war, like where superpowers fight.
Right. And
it's been 70 plus years since superpowers have fought each other. World War II, right? And so all the wars after that have been skirmishes and proxy wars. Like even you look at like Syria. Syria is a perfect example. You have the Russian military that's backing the Syrian military, and you have us backing the rebels, and then you have ISIS caught in the middle, and it's all fucked up over there, right? But are Russia and America really fighting? Some would say yes, some would say no. It's a proxy war, right? And we've done that for decades. We've done that with Vietnam. We did that with Iraq and Afghanistan. We did that. We went in there and we kind of bolstered their military up as much as we could to fight this war, to not fight. I mean, we did that shit when Iraq and Iran fought each other. Iran is supposed to be this massive nuclear superpower, and they got their ass kicked by Iraq. Right. But a lot of people don't realize that we supplied all that shit to Iraq, and then come 20, 30 years later, we're getting shot by the same shit we supplied these fuckers with. You know, like going in Afghanistan when they kept shooting down our goddamn helicopters. They're shooting down with our Javelin missiles, the same ones we gave Osama bin Laden to fight fucking Russia back in the day.
Right. But we already knew in advance they were enemies of the enemy, right?
Pretty much.
I mean, it's not like when you were...
Yeah, it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing, right? You know? And we knew that. And it was one of those things like, we knew that, but we didn't know that that enemy would turn on us, right? You know, like the dog that bit the hand that fed him, and we didn't know that, and we kind of thought it might happen, and then it did, and we're like, oh shit, but we didn't learn from it, and we're still giving out money nonstop to these countries that don't necessarily benefit us in any way, shape, or form. You know, you give Pakistan $400 million for fucking what? Right. Pakistan hates us. How many times has Pakistan said, no, you can't put a military base here, or no, you can't do this, and no, you can't use our land to launch your military operations, and no, so Osama bin Laden isn't here, and then oops, he's fucking here. You know, like, why are we giving money to these fuckers? Like, it goes back to saying I think we should take care of America first, take care of our issues here first, and then whatever's left over, then we help out. But I see your thing about whole, you know, we don't have anything else to contribute, and we fall from being a superpower. It's a delicate balance.
I mean, and I don't mean to derail the train, but is there a solution to homelessness though? Is there? I feel like homelessness has been around for as long as prostitution.
Dude, I have a solution, and I can do it in one fucking day. I can actually end two things in one day. I can end homelessness. Okay. I can end homelessness and hungriness. People being hungry in one day.
How is that?
You feed the homeless to the hungry.
No, we'll be back for next week's episode. Good night, everybody.
That was a joke.
And I laughed hard at that.
No, I'm sure there is a solution, right?
Yeah.
But you look at, like, we say, oh, hey, you know, we have a homeless issue, and we do, right? We do have a homeless issue. And a lot of it's not necessarily like the homes aren't available to them or the resources aren't available to them. It comes down to apathy. There's a statistic out there. It's like 75% of all homeless people solve their homelessness in like 24 hours, right? You know, people that get evicted and things like that. So you see this big homeless number, you're like, oh my God. Well, that number of people that are repetitive homelessness or being homeless for multiple days or weeks or months or years is actually a very, very small number, right? Compared to our general population.
We're talking specifically here, not any other, or are you talking about in
America,
general?
Just in America.
Got it.
Right? But even our homeless people still fall in there's like the world poverty level, and then there's the America poverty level. Our America poverty level is so fucking high that even our homeless people don't fall within the world poverty level.
That's wild.
Right? It's wild. Yeah. Like even our homeless people make more money than a lot of people around the entire world, you know, where dudes are only making $1 a day. Dude, I'll go out in the fucking corner over here and get someone to give me $1, and I'm richer than a lot of fucking people in a lot of countries, right? The problem comes that there's so many different issues of, you know, being addicted to drugs or addicted to alcohol or, you know, prison recidivism and things like that cause these issues, that just trying to solve homelessness is not the issue to solve. It's to solve all the other outlying issues. You know, that if you go in there and start solving these issues of like, hey, okay, alcoholism, let's find a cure for alcoholism. Is it a pill? Is it fucking shit ton of rehab? Or what is, you know, let's find the solution to that. And then boom, you cure that one. That starts curing that homelessness thing, because then people start becoming productive. You know, cure drugs, you know, like, hey, is there a solution? You know, we tried laws and stuff banning all drugs, like, you know, snap your finger and all the drugs are gone type thing. You know, is that going to solve it? There's all these little issues or these other things that cause the homelessness. And the politicians just use it as like a catch-all, like we're going to solve homelessness, or there's 3 million people in America that are homeless. Well, no, there's probably not 3 million at one point, you know, like that's a statistical number, because at one point, like, I was homeless because I sold my old house. I didn't have a new house because I closed the next day.
Right.
So for 24 hours, I was homeless.
Right.
Went and got a hotel room and went over there. It was a different homelessness than you think in your head, but that number's counted in that whole homelessness thing, right? So when you think of homelessness, you think of the bum that's on the corner that doesn't have a home and that's sleeping over there, and that number is actually relatively really low per capita compared to our population of the people that actually have that issue, and not just, hey, you know.
Right. But it's like it's slowly increasing though, right?
It is, and there's a lot of issues to do with that. There's a lot of issues with how much, you know, houses cost, right? We all know this, you know, housing market has gone ridiculous, and houses all of a sudden cost 2-3 times more what it is. And then what happens when a house costs more? Rent goes up, and then all of a sudden wages are kind of stagnant a little bit. You know, they're not really paying out livable wages, and those things haven't really kept up with the times. But it's always a chess game, right? So if you raise the cost of a house and you raise the cost of how much you're making an hour, you're moving 2 pawns across the board, right? Well, now all of a sudden you're making more money, you can afford more house, and now house cost rises again.
Right.
And then you're like, well, shit, I'm not making enough money. And then you know, it's always moving that pawn across the board until, you know, one of them fails, until the housing market collapses or jobs, all of a sudden you can't make enough money, and then there's mass layoffs and things like that.
See, my only, I guess, kickback to that would be like, and don't get me wrong, I'm a Texan through and through, but it's like our minimum wage hasn't increased at all since like 2005, 6, 7.
Oh yeah.
So it's like the cost of a home tripled up, but even if we like fought, you know, kept down the increase in pay, if you will, like it still doesn't seem to be like the problem to solve.
No, and you're right. But so our minimum wage in Texas, I think it's like $7.25, right? I want you to go find me someone right now that works for $7.25 an hour. Matter of fact, I want you to go find me a company right now that pays $7.25 an hour.
Right.
They're not out there.
Right.
They're not. I'm pretty sure the company you work for, their minimum wage is like what, $18, $19 an hour?
Yeah.
That's their starting pay.
Yeah.
So that's almost 3 times the cost of minimum wage.
Right.
Right. So granted, yeah, that's there, but the market's dictating that wage, right?
Right.
And it used to be, you know, yeah, you go to a burger joint and you start at minimum wage. Back when minimum wage was cool. Go find out what McDonald's.
Well, mine was $5.50 when
$5.50. When I first started, it was $5.50. It was $5.25 or
Yeah.
$5.50. Yep. I pushed carts at Albertsons for like $5.25 an hour.
I was the glizzy maker over at Sonic. What was your first job?
Movie theater.
Oh, yeah,
Movie theater, yeah. So, but you go out nowadays, you find those jobs, right?
Yeah.
The cashier, the cart pushers, like
Yeah.
at HEB, are making $15-$16 an hour. They're not making minimum wage. The you know, Sonic guys, the guys that are in there flipping burgers and things like that, are making, you see the fucking sign down there, hiring, starting pay $18 an hour or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Even the movies, they're still making $18, $19, $20 an hour starting out. So the whole argument of like our minimum wage needs to increase, it's null and void. That's a talking point, right? Get the
So if
masses
a
all riled
politician's
up.
like, I'll increase, you know,
Yeah, I'm gonna increase minimum wage.
It's like,
But who the fuck are you helping?
They don't even say that.
Yeah.
well, that's
Like-
that's a tall glass to.
But really, like even if a politician went in right now and increased the minimum wage to $15 an hour, who the fuck are you actually helping?
Yeah.
You're not helping nobody, because no one's making that right now. Everyone's making more than that.
I think Governor Newsom's increasing it in California. I think he's doing it like at 20 an hour.
Yeah,
Minimum.
But California's a lot more expensive moving,
Right.
And that's the thing, is like how our government is founded. You know, you have your federal powers and your state powers,
Right.
and the state can override a lot of federal powers. The federal says, hey, your minimum wage has to be at least $7.25. The state can come in and say, hey, you know what? No, I want my minimum wage to be $20 an hour or $30 an hour. Or in some cases, there's states that don't even have a minimum wage whatsoever. I think Alabama's one of them, that there is no minimum wage whatsoever, right? So technically, if I offered you 50 cents an hour to work and you were dumb enough to fucking take it, that's your own dumbass fault, you know? Now, I don't know if the federal one would trump that one in that case, right? I'm not sure on how the laws work.
Yeah.
But you know, that comes down to you knowing your value for your fucking time. If you're going to go into somewhere and want $7.25 an hour to push carts, and you take that job, don't get fucking pissed when someone that comes in and says, no, I'm only do it for $15 an hour, and they get the same job you do, make it $15 an hour. That's your own fucking fault for not saying I want $15 an hour. Yeah. Now, granted, you can't walk in HEB and be like, I want $100 an hour to push carts, because they're going to laugh your fucking ass out the door. You know, they're not going to give you $100 an hour to push carts.
Yeah.
You know, but then again, jobs like that are not designed for you to have a livable, like what people like, livable wage. Well, what the fuck is a livable wage, right? Are you talking someone living in a 4,000 square foot house, has 2 car payments and kids in school? Their livable wage is going to be so much higher than someone that's sharing a flat with one of his buddies.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, what is a livable wage? And there's so much discrepancy because...
No, there's really not. Livable wage is your rent should not be more than, what, 1 paycheck a month?
Well, I would hope it's not more than 1 paycheck a month.
But most people, it's more than that. So most people are living below what's livable.
Depends on where you're living. But
No, because they've done studies since 2000 that, what is it, people are, like, and if you move into a place, you're supposed to make double or triple the rent a month.
3 times the rent.
So it should be like 1 week's worth of pay, but most people are paying, like, they're having to squeak by and pay like 2 point something, like.
Yeah, but where? Right? It comes back to that.
Anywhere. Like, what's, like, minimum wage is not $7.25 or whatever. But, like, let's just say $15 an hour or even $20 an hour times $40 a week. What is, how much are you making?
$800 pre-taxes.
800. Now, how much is rent on a single bedroom apartment anywhere in the Austin area?
Okay, well, there you go.
Over probably 1,000 or more.
Well, it
so you're
depends.
automatically getting into that more than 1 paycheck.
Yeah, it depends.
You see, real quickly, and like some people are not making the 20, some people are making the 15.
Yeah,
So it's
but
like it's
depends on where in
all real
Austin you're talking
closely.
about. It depends on where in
It
Austin.
doesn't matter. You're not going to find an apartment anywhere around Austin for less than $800 for a single.
In the entire Austin metro.
No.
You're talking all the way from San Marcos to Gerald.
I would no, even in Lockhart,
That's-
bro, where it's
that's
like
the
small.
metro.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna pay $700 or $800.
You can
for a
find
single.
one, but you ain't gonna like it.
No, you won't even find one, bro.
No, they're out there. I guarantee they're
they're-
out there. Because even like right here, like the ones in Plum Creek right here, the Vistas or something like that, those are like $950 a month, right, for your rent, right? Now it's a 1-bedroom little kitchen, right? And is that a little bit above that living wage? Maybe a hair, right? Okay, but that still goes back into, in my opinion, that goes back into your value, right? If you're okay with making 15 or 20 bucks an hour and you're okay with that lifestyle,
Right.
then cool. But don't try to have a lifestyle of fucking Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk on $20 an hour.
You're not in Westlake.
No, you're not in Westlake. Don't go out in Westlake and be like, I can't afford an apartment out here in Westlake because I don't make enough money.
Right.
Well, no shit. Maybe get a job that you can make more money. Make yourself more valuable. It's not the job of an employer or my job as a taxpayer to make your value. It's you to make your value.
So after taxes, that's only $640.
$640.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're basically gonna pay you're gonna have 2 weeks of work to
Give or
get
take, yeah.
Yeah.
or 1.5 or 2.
But if you have, like, let's just say you have a spouse, then that kind of helps alleviate that a little bit.
Yeah, but then that goes into the whole thing where I think that's part of the problem, and I would like personally, I would like if I ever have a relationship, I don't want my woman to work, and I think that it would be a lot of stuff would be better in this country if a lot of the women had the option to stay home because we were making good money relative to how expensive everything is, but they've made it to where they've kind of priced us out of the market where, like you said, since 2000, homes have tripled in price, and everything's gone up versus wages have hardly gone up.
Yeah.
So it's forced to where a lot of couples feel like they both have to work to get by and make it comfortable and realistic. But it's like we're seeing that's not really best for the family unit. It would be better if the woman could stay home or work part-time if she wanted to, not where it's like a necessity. So it's like the government's doing this crooked thing where they're making our economy worse and worse and worse. And corporations and whoever you want to blame.
I don't think
but
it's government. I think it's the market, right? Which is the corporations and the economy and all that stuff. I think that's what they're doing.
But they're getting
And
too crooked with the monopolies because like we're supposed to be anti-monopoly, but we are not as tight on that shit as we should be.
No, not as tight as it should be because there are a lot of
And that allows the corporations to do this crooked shit
Yeah.
and really gouge the market. And you have companies like BlackRock and shit just buying all the homes and fucking us out of the.
Which
it's
I
like the
completely
government.
agree. That's like
we don't hold our
super fucked up.
government accountable to like prosecute that shit. You're mad when a citizen does something that makes a bunch of money. What about when a company fucks over and makes a bunch of money? They're like, oh, that's cool.
Comes in, man.
Huh?
Lobbying millions of dollars of these
Yeah,
fucking assholes'
but-
pockets. No, and I can 100% agree with you.
We start to think, well, it just comes down to money, but it's like eventually we're starting to see the money impact our society and our
Yeah.
culture because it's directly how I said it's directly impacted our ability to have successful families. because women are spending more and more time on careers, and that impacts the family unit.
Yeah.
You're seeing with all these.
But what's stopping that dude, right? Like you say, you want to be a provider, right? You want to be able to go out and get a job or have a good high paying job so that your spouse, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, doesn't have to go and work. She can stay home and take care of the house, right?
Right.
What's stopping you?
No, you can still grind up to get to that level, but it's stopping like the everyman. Like not
But it's not
everyone
gonna happen
has
in
the
your early
opportunity
20s.
to grind up and get to a certain level, but not everyone can be rich. There's levels to where everyone's
you're
going
right.
to settle in. But it used to be to where if you worked 40 hours, honest, good working man, even if you stayed with the company the whole time, you were going to be able to provide for your family. But now it's like you're saying, you can't just be a good factory worker or a good electrician at a company or like a good cop or a good whatever role you're playing for that guy who is making the money. You got to try to become the big man of the company. You can't just be. And that's why people don't take pride in their work. Like, oh, well, I'm just the cop, or I'm just the electrician, or I'm just the doctor's aide, or I'm just the lawyer's aide. Like,
Because there's no incentive.
I'm only working just to get by, and I'm making my boss all this money. And like, if I want to be more comfortable and actually just live comfortably, I'm gonna have to get to a level where I'm the boss.
Yeah.
So people have this attitude of like, well,
There's
I'm
no
just
incentive.
gonna get by and not take pride in my work. Where back in the day, you had someone that said, you know what, I really don't want to be the boss. I'd rather just want to do a good job for my boss and make him money, and I'll be able to live comfortably. And I'm happy in my role. Nowadays, people are like, well, I'm like struggling in my role. I don't like this role. I want to fuck this role, and if I can make it to the next role, that's what I want to do. But I don't want to just be. People are not just happy being a cog in the system where it used to be like attractive. Like, I'm just gonna work for my boss for 30 years. He's going to respect that. I'm going to be taken care of, and like I'm going to be able to provide and get by.
Yeah.
Now it's not the same. And that's why you have all these workers that are at the bottom, used to be happy and good workers. Now they're like, fuck this. They feel like it's not giving them a life that's worth working for.
Yeah, and no, not 100% because there's no incentive for you.
So you
as
have
an
to
employee. Yeah, there's no incentive for you as an employee to do better, do more, because you're right. There's a lot of corporations, a lot of companies out there that even though you take that extra step or take that extra initiative, it doesn't do anything to benefit you. And I 100% agree with that.
Fuck, I'm not going to work hard for Amazon or Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be my own boss at something else, and because
but you know what
doesn't make sense.
But you know what that does is it ends up burning out employees, right?
It has. It's deteriorated the moral fabric of our country.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is the companies that do those type of things, right, that do incentivize their employees to do better,
right,
then actually follow through with it, those companies end up becoming really good companies, right, to work for. Mm-hmm. And people jump over hand over fist to start trying to work for those companies. Like, I know your boss very, very personally, right? Look, I know she does a shit ton for that company and to incentivize you guys, right? And their turnover rate is fucking near zero right now. And they have a lot of good employees because of the things they do.
Don't you think it's harder when the companies get bigger and bigger, though?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens. It starts off as a good idea, and then, like, sometimes it's even good while that owner's there, and then they die, or they sell out, or they, not sell out, but, like, they sell the company to someone else or whatever, and then the company gets big, and it's someone else in charge, and it gets to a point where, like, it's not what it was.
No, you're right. And that's where the employees
Walmart started off with Sam Walton and all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of companies that start off like that, and then they get really, really big, and now it's just another big cog in the wheel.
But the problem is that, like, when you get business or companies like that, like Pixar, Apple, what they'll do is those incentives, they end up leveraging them to where, like, they're like, well, if I'm going to be staying here, I get all this free food. They practically live there, and then they work off the clock, if you will. And so it's like, well, it's almost kind of like dangling a carrot in front of them. So it's like, it could be a good thing, but it can
be a bad thing.
Right.
You're right. And there's not like I don't think that there's an exact recipe for like how a company should operate to be, excel. Because if that was the case,
I do. I think you have to share your profits with your employees,
right? Okay.
On some level, and like, it doesn't have to. It needs to be some sort of like merit-based thing. This guy's been with me this many years. He profits the company X amount, and the company's this much better because of him. So I'm going to give him a little kickback off of that. When you see that not happening anymore, whether it's like it can be done in a lot of different ways, but when you don't see that anymore, that's when the employees don't care. And that's when it just, and I feel like that's kind of the culture now.
It comes in ownership and
everything's
accountability.
just a number,
right? It comes in ownership and accountability. And what a lot of employers fail to realize up until, like, one thing they'll give like the Gen Zs and millennials recognition on is how they view being an employee, right? Because back with the Gen Xers and the Boomers and stuff, it was always like, what can I do for the company? What can I do for the company? And boosting out. And now you guys are like, well, what is the company going to do for me, right? And you're starting to hold these employers accountable to, hey, well, hey, I'm clocking out at 5, and you're like, well, hey, when you get home, can you do this spreadsheet? And it's like, oh, you're going to pay me? Like, no. Well, then why the fuck am I doing it? Like, no, hands down, you know, right? And I know your boss is the same way. You guys do work, like, you get paid for it, you know? You have to do something. You're on the clock. You're getting paid for it. And I do think I like your thing of the whole, you know, ownership, right? Because you look at it, your owner has, the owner of a company has a pretty large liability in the company, right? Because you have tools, equipment, vehicles, insurance. Like, there's a pretty big liability in there. There's a larger risk. Whereas, like, the employee doesn't have a large risk. They have a very small risk.
They don't have skin in the game.
They don't have skin in the game. And if you start doing profit sharing, right, you know, I think that is one solution to do that, or merit-based like bonuses, you know, or commissions and things like that, you know, to incentivize employees to do a lot better. But the other thing is to follow through on those, right? So when you have an employee that is doing good and they approach you and they're like, hey, boss, you know, I think I've been doing a really good job. I think, you know, I, you know, not just like, hey, I've been doing my job, right? Not like, hey, I'm showing up on time and I'm doing my job how I'm paid to do, but you're the Johnny on the spot. You're the go-to motherfucker. You're the, you know, you're the guy that knows everything about that fucking job that's going on. And you approach your boss, your employer, and you're like, hey, man, you know, I've done a lot of good shit for this company. I feel like I'm being undervalued. You know, can we talk about a raise? And if your boss is not open to that dialogue, that's not a company you want to work for. Your boss should always be open to a dialogue of when no matter what time of day it is, it doesn't matter, 24/7, you should be able to call your boss up and be like, hey, bro, this is what's going on. I feel like I'm undervalued. Because if you feel undervalued, you're not going to do the work that's prescribed to you. And then it's going to create turmoil and tension and all this other fun stuff. And then you're going to move on your way, right? That door should always be open for you to walk in and talk to your boss about your lifestyle. About, hey, man, I think I'm doing a really good job. I've done this. How about, you know, let's discuss a raise. And you might come to him like, hey, I want $5 an hour. And the boss might be like, dude, look, I get it. I understand. How about $2 an hour? And boom, there's a negotiation. You might have gone and shot for the moon expecting to get $2 an hour, and now you got $2 an hour and walk out, you're happier. You know, and in the grand scheme of things, what really pisses me off, these companies are reporting massive profits, like a record fucking profits, and their employees are still making the same they were making. It's like, wait a minute, dude, look, I get it. You know, like Walmart has 1 million fucking employees, right? But they're reporting $1 billion in profit. Why can't you come down and give all the employees an extra $1 an hour? You know, you may make half of them happy. You may not make them happy, but you're making a gesture to it, you know, or reinvesting into the business. Like, I know for a fact your boss has never taken a salary from that company. To this day, they still have not taken a salary. They have reinvested every penny they've gotten from that company back into the company. That's why you guys drive those nice trucks. That's why you guys have the best equipment and the best tools. Like, your boss has done a really good job at doing that, you know? And I think that's helping that out, you know?
The thing, too, also is, like, it's a business. At the end of the day, it's a business. And that's something that I've worked in retail. You know, when I worked at HEB...
Oh, dude, I'd never work in retail again.
Oh, I'm currently in that...
The audacity of some people.
I'm currently in it right now. Shout out to Lowe's. Anyways. But
they're going to fire you one of these days on that.
When that day comes. But
make sure you advertise on this Black Friday deal.
You need a lick, give me a holler. But like, I understood...
carpet.
Right. My thing is just like, I understood like there's no pleasing everybody. That's just what it comes down to. And the problem is like they may have like a super like, yeah, they had a record breaking thing, but the following year they may be cut half what they made, and now they still got to pay the people that are like, yeah, we promised everybody $1 raise, but now that's
that's where layoffs come in, right? We're not reinvesting in the company.
But people don't think that. It's like, and again, my thing was this: like when I first got into working like at HEB and like those kind of companies, I was like the bottom guy. Like, I was kind of like you know, that disgruntled guy at first. Like, I was just like, man, this is like, fuck this system, blah blah blah. But then like one of my bosses, he broke it down to me. He's like, listen, like, this is a system. That's the way that it is. You know, he's like, managers or people with, you know, supervising roles, they're the ones that have more responsibilities, more things that they have to do. they're literally on call 24/7. And so, because of that, they're probably going to get, when they get a bonus, it's going to be significantly more than when you came in from, 9 to 5 kind of deal,
Yeah.
So that, when he told me that, that's when I was like, well, I can't argue that.
The responsibility is much higher,
Yeah.
with with the trades, anything like the supervisors and trades and stuff, their responsibility is a lot higher.
Right.
If like something's wired wrong, right, in the electrical company you guys work for, something wired wrong, the GC is not going down to lowest apprentice on the totem pole and being like, what the hell happened? He's going to either the owner of the company, or he's going to one of the supervisors there and being like, what the fuck? And then now that supervisor's got to fix it, right? So the responsibility is a lot higher. It's also, there's a lot of time management, all those other things that go into that. So yeah, you're right. And so when bonuses do get handed out, I don't know the word there. Usually the supervisor can get the higher bonuses. But what pisses me off is when CEOs get a bonus of like $400 million. Like, fuck you, dude. Really? Like, do you need another fucking yacht? Like, kiss my ass.
Yeah.
You could have been fine with $1 million bonus, and $399 million of that could have been invested in your employees or invested in the company.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you need another $400 million.
Yeah, I would make that argument too, but if I'm a CEO, like of a successful company, I'm be like, I literally built this thing. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but CEOs are just employees.
CEOs are employees.
They don't own the company. Usually you have a board.
At that point,
Right, but that's my point. That's
owner.
what I was gonna say. They put people that
Share profit
and
holders.
I think I told Logan this. CEOs put smarter people in those positions that are experts in whatever it is that they're looking for. So it's almost like a head coach position, right? Like I get they don't make as much money as like the athlete, but they're the ones that are putting the puzzles together.
Yeah,
It's a lot of work, you know what I mean? And like you said,
it is. But in the same token, even as like a CEO, right, that has to, even as a CEO, when you want to hire like an assistant CEO or assistant manager or whatever, right?
Right.
That still has to get approved by the board.
Right.
And then that has to get, like, a lot of times in companies that have IPOs and stuff like that, a lot of that times that has to get approved by the shareholders. So it's not like the CEO is the ultimate like go-to guy. Right. He still has to get permission from people.
But most small businesses, I guess I should have said that. Most small businesses don't really have a board unless they want to do that.
No, not really. Most small businesses have
so
like an
I guess
owner,
for a small business owner, I guess I'm speaking from that side of the aspect.
But usually that small business owner has all the risk. Right.
Exactly.
You look at like a bakery, that $10,000 oven that's in there isn't owned by the employee, it's owned by the owner. Right. And so if he pisses off all of his employees and they all leave, that $10,000 piece of equipment is useless. But also the employee's useless without that $10,000 piece of equipment, right? To bake those cakes or do whatever, right? And so there is a formula that has to be out there, or a right way to do that, to invest in your employees, invest in the company, and still make money. There's a guy I follow on TikTok, the well and septic guy. He's country as fuck. He's got like 18 wives or something like that, right? And he's always on there talking about jobs.
Yeah.
That guy, he takes, his paycheck is the lowest man's paycheck, right? That's what he takes home. So when he hires people, he better be ready to have his paycheck to be what that guy's paycheck is, right? All the rest of the money he invests back into the company to make more, to buy more trucks, to hire more employees, to make more money, and then eventually his employees will get bumped up, boom, 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 and then that means his pay's gonna go bump up, right? Or it could all fall flat in the face. I don't know, because there was that study, that guy in California, where he was making like millions of dollars a year in his company, and he's like, I'm gonna make $70,000 a year. Everybody's gonna make $70,000 a year, and that company fucking disappeared. It went bankrupt, right? Because it was a shit show, So there's a balance out there, and whether someone figures it out one day or not, I don't know. I mean, fuck, I might buy a bunch of businesses and figure it out. I might just buy a bunch of businesses and fall flat on my face. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting too, is when you see like CEOs when they get like thrown off by their board. There's a couple of people that comes to mind, like Steve Jobs. He was thrown off Apple by his own board. And then his name is Mark Zucker, I think, or not Mark Zucker. So, what's the guy's name? I forget.
Facebook guy?
Not the Facebook guy. The guy from the Men's Warehouse. The guy's like, you're gonna like the way you look, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
He got thrown off as CEO from his own board as well, and you're just like, like man,
Because at that time, you're just an employee.
yeah,
That's all you are.
yeah,
You're just a head figure. You're an employee. You're someone for someone above you to yell down at when something's going wrong.
yeah.
You know, that's just really what it is. I mean, you look even at our government, that's the same way. Essentially, we're the shareholders, you know, supposed to be the board that elects the new CEO, which is the president, and then everybody below him and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing a really shitty job at doing that,
Yeah.
you know?
What are your thoughts on voting? You like voting or no?
Did you vote?
No,
Oh,
no, voting's for suckers.
fuck, man. Fuck you. That is like the one fucking American right that you need to fucking do.
It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything because there's a fucking shit ton of people just like you that aren't going out and voting.
You voted last
changing the-
time. Who's the last person you voted for?
I just did my local election.
Who'd you vote for?
I voted for a person in my district because there was two
Who
people.
is it?
Huh?
Who is it?
Dr. Claudia. What the fuck's her last name? Claudia is all I know her. Because the other person running against her was a really shitty person, right? And then I also
My
voted
point
for a
is-
bunch of bonds that were going to help or hurt our community, you know, in some way, shape, or form, like road bonds and things like that. But I went and voted for them.
Bonds. What does that do?
It's basically a government borrows a shit ton of money to go rebuild a bunch of roads, and then they raise a tax rate by a hair to help pay that bond back, like when roads are going bad or when a school needs to be rebuilt or added onto.
When's the last time you voted for one of these people and you're like, damn, I'm glad I voted for them? They're just a bunch of cocksuckers that no one cares about. They're rather forgettable. They get in there and they cuck out to the system and they do whatever the movement is going on at the time. They could be dead set against transgenders, and then they get in there like, we're having a transgender parade, and they're like, well, I'll just go with it, I guess, because I'm a fucking loser that doesn't have any fucking morals.
Yeah.
The morals for everyone are just out the goddamn window. No one wants to hurt anybody's feelings or do anything hard or get anything real done. They just want to get in office and suck a bunch of dick and make a bunch of money and smile at everybody. Do we want change? Do we want to? We're getting change, but it's terrible change. And the people that get in there are spineless, and they get in there and they just whip around like they're in the ocean in the waves.
That's because you're not voting for anybody.
No,
worth
it's
a
not because
shit.
of me. People are voting, and the results are fucking lackluster.
It's because of you and the other.
That's just an
100 million
excuse. That's a
motherfuckers
cop
that
out there. I
don't
can be like,
vote.
well, it's because the small percentage of people that don't vote.
Small
Or even
percentage?
if it's the majority,
Motherfucker.
even if it's the majority that don't vote, there are people voting. There are people getting elected. They're just shitty.
Yeah.
They're all shitty.
Because all the other ones that aren't going to get, like, you're not going voting in the primaries and things like that to elect the proper person that you may or may not like in there. Because what happens, right? Voting, right? It's not just one day a fucking year. You go into this first Tuesday of November to vote for people. There are primaries and all kinds of stuff you have to go vote in the beginning to say who's going to be on that ballot.
None of them
So
are
like
good
the
options,
Republican
though.
primary might have the Republican ballot for the primary might have 10, 15 fucking dudes on it, but by the time November hits, it has one.
Are any of them any good though?
Some of them maybe, some maybe not, but we're not giving them the fucking chance. Or you're not going out and voting for another fucking party like the Tea Party or Libertarian or the Work Party or one of the Green Party or one of these other fucking parties that are out there. You're not going out there and giving your vote, and so we're stuck in this two-party fucking system.
Here's the reason it's fucked up. Because we live in a republic where we give them we elect someone and then we just trust that they can do whatever they want once they get in there. What we need to do is make it we need to shift a lot more towards a direct democracy where we're voting on like a lot more stuff. I want to vote on not everything, but a lot more shit. I don't want to give you I don't trust that we elect you and then you're in there for a period of time after that you can just do whatever the fuck you want. It's like y'all have ruined that trust.
Yeah, and I see where you're going with that. I don't think a direct democracy would solve that issue.
It would.
No, I don't think it would. Right?
Why not?
I think that would cause our political system to come to a grinding halt because any decision would have to go out to 350 million people.
I'm not saying for every single thing, but I'm saying it needs to happen. It needs to
But
shift that way a lot more.
Where do you draw that line? That's the problem, right?
Well, let's at least have a discussion about it. We can't just say, well, we're going to do it. We won't.
I think...
Like, let's have a discussion about it. Let's shift more that way.
I don't think anything would get solved. I think
it would. I think
what would help solve the problem
Why do you think
accountability.
Let's fucking take away some of their goddamn power. They've ruined their chances. It's like a little kid.
You take away power with accountability.
It's like when you tell your toddler, I've given you privileges to go in the fridge and get whatever kind of drink you like, but don't get a soda every time. Sometimes get water, and you see them, soda, and you even tell them, and they just keep doing it. It's like, all right,
where's the accountability?
Fridge privileges revoked.
That's literally what I'm just saying.
Your privileges are revoked.
Then you're holding them fucking accountable, right?
I know. So let's take away some of what they get to do. Let's give
their
some
power.
Let's give it to
us.
us.
Hold them accountable.
Okay, so we agree. Give the power to the people.
But that's with accountability. It's not bringing every
Take
fucking
away
vote
what
down to
they
people.
can do and give the power to the people.
Hold them accountable.
We are by taking away some of their
Hey,
power.
do we really want to give power to the people?
Fuck no.
Yes.
No.
You really want this
Yes,
dumbass
bro.
fucking voting on shit?
Dude, you gotta.
You already have people
that's what I was
driving
gonna
next to
say,
you on the
like-
highway. You already have people driving next to you on the highway. People can buy guns. People can buy gasoline. They could burn down your house tomorrow if they wanted to. I mean, we already are giving people have freedom. We don't want freedom, so we need to decide what the fuck. That's like the abortion thing. If you let every place vote on that shit, everyone would vote for just like pro-choice. I'm pretty sure that would win everywhere. But we give it to the government, and then they get all convoluted and fucked with it, and then everyone's all butthurt about it. It's like just let the people let the fucking people of every county vote on it. And if your county disagrees, you can just drive to the next goddamn county. But it's like this cock and horse rodeo where we elect Ted Cruz or we elect said person, and then they battle it out, and then we're all fucking butthurt. It's like, why don't we just vote on this a lot more of this shit? I understand we can't be voting on war because when war happens, we have to have somebody that's like making cutthroat decisions. Fast. We can't vote on war and shit. I understand. But like some things the people need to fucking vote on.
I get you, and I 100% understand.
Well, all the people can't be trusted.
No, I didn't say
Y'all can't be trusted. We tried it.
You're voting for people, right? But I 100% understand what you're saying, and I agree with a good mass majority of it. But I think if the solution is not taking us to a pure democracy where people
I'm not saying all the way, but a lot more that way.
But I think if we got a lot of the issues out of DC, like lobbying should be fucking illegal, millions of dollars in a campaign fund should be highly illegal, fucking term limits, they should put term limits on things, start holding these politicians accountable for these bullshit things that they do that fuck up our system, start holding them accountable. That will start, it's one of those things like back to the homelessness, right? You got this big fucking issue and you have all these little causes and you start solving those little causes, the system will be just fine, right? But if you go to a pure democratic thing like where the majority always wins, you're gonna fuck over a lot of people, and you're not only gonna because you're gonna fuck because in a democracy, right? 50.1% all it has to do, right?
Yeah.
So if we take something to the vote that says, hey, we're gonna raise the cost of root beer by 25 cents. And 50.1% of the people say yes, and 49.9% of the people say no. You're fucking over 49.9%.
I mean, we already have to live with decisions like this anyway, where one politician decides or one group gets together. They have the numbers.
It's a 2/3 vote.
But still, I mean, we could even put it 2/3. But that's the people. But my point is, let's take away the power from the politicians and give it to the people.
And you're doing that by starting to hold accountability and get the lobbying and get the things that are getting right.
How are you going to do all that though?
Huh?
I at least have a solution. Let's let people vote on more stuff. What is
you
your
have
solution?
to create laws?
Who's enforcing these laws? It's like you're trying to use the same system that's already there. It's already shown that the system's corrupt. It can't manage itself. We got to shift it up a little more dramatic.
Yeah, well,
than that.
That's part of the stage.
They already have laws to prevent certain things, and they just find ways to circumvent these laws.
And then you punish them for circumventing laws.
It's like when Trump and all these people, they do it on both sides, but they have all these money accounts offshores to avoid taxes and get all schemy with it, and it's legal somehow. It's like we can't punish them. They found loopholes, and it's like...
Then you close the
Clinton's
fucking loophole.
Well, but no one's doing that. It's like if some way rubber has to meet the road, let's just give the people the power to vote.
Okay. Well, people do have the power to vote.
More stuff.
Okay. But anyways, right?
Why are you so against that?
Because I don't think it's the solution. I don't think it's the
you're giving people power to elect the representatives, so are they? They're not competent. They're not competent enough to elect the representatives.
Are people nowadays that like? I feel like there's a lack of common sense nowadays. Where
so they're not accountable. They're not like they have no common sense and no like reasonability to decide on the individual topics. But you're entrusting them to elect a politician. They're dumb. They're dumb. They get fooled
exactly. Look, I actually do have I do have a solution here. Right? Hold on. Now check this out. And I've always thought this would be kind of cool. Yeah. Right? Now. Should everyone have the right to vote? Yes. Should everyone vote? No. It comes back to guns. Should everyone have the right to own a gun? Yes. But we all know people that probably shouldn't fucking own a gun, right? Because they're idiots, right? What if instead of blanket saying, hey, everyone can go out and vote, right? What if we do it just like jury duty, right? Where when the election season...
That's worse than my idea.
Up, man.
That's worse than my idea.
Just listen. No.
Holy fuck.
You're not
get the wrong sample size and you're fucked.
No, hold on. What do you mean the wrong sample size? Right, you do it just like jury duty, right? Where you send out these summons, right? And because let's say in this community, this guy gets a summons, and that community gets guys in this city or whatever. You got these other summons, right? And their sole job for the entire year of the election cycle is to go out and learn what everything about these politicians. You watch every single one of the debates, and you read all their plans, and you read all their proposals and all their bills they want to do, and you learn everything about that fucking politician, and then you discuss that with your people, with the people in your community.
That's what politicians are already supposed to do.
But they're not.
You're just
the
doing like a
politician's
2.0 of it, bro.
But no. This is to elect people into that position. You elect the proper person that goes in there and listens to you, right? Because the problem is it goes back to this thing where
we do. We elect representatives. They go up to Washington, listen to what's going on, come back and tell us, and they vote for us. That's what we already do. It's fucked.
That's what they're supposed to do.
So it's like,
and
if we already have a system set up like this that's going wrong, what do you think it's going to do?
No, and technically that's what they do, right? But I don't see you logging into Ted Cruz's website and listening to what the fuck he has to say. I don't see you logging into, I don't know who the mayor of Lockhart is or whatever. I don't see you interjecting yourself to learn those things, right? You have to do that. If you want to make this decision, right, whether or not we're going to raise root beer by 25 cents a fucking bottle, you need to go on and find out what the repercussions of that. All you're doing right now, and the problem is there's so much shit that's going on. There's so many rider bills and so many things going on that you're not learning what's inside those fucking things to say if it's beneficial or not. They're coming up and saying, hey, we're going to lower the price of fucking root beer by 25 cents. And you're like, well, fuck yeah, I love root beer.
Yeah.
But you're not reading the rider bill on that says, hey, by the way, we're going to raise the price of every other soda by 25 cents. And that's going to go to pay for this war in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And you're not really reading that. Because if you knew that, if you're educated on that, you wouldn't probably vote for it. You'd be like, no, I'm cool with not paying, paying 25 cents extra so we don't go to this fucking war.
Put it on they don't put it on the bill. They're just like, are you going to vote for this? Yes or no? It's like, well, put the whole thing,
Yeah, but the problem with that, dude, and then once it goes back to letting everybody vote, right, is those let's say the proposition, right, the road bomb propositions. You'll go into the voting booth and they'll say, hey, are you going to vote yes or no on Prop A or whatever? And this is what it is to repair and rebuild these roads and all this other stuff, right? But the actual proposition of the thing is like a fucking book. It's just
why?
Because there's a bunch of rider bills, there's a bunch of bullshit.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Correct. I agree. I think it shouldn't. I don't think we should have rider bills. I think if a motherfucker wants to go to war with Pakistan, then he should be like, that's its own separate thing. Or if we want to raise the fucking price on Dr. Pepper, it should be its own separate fucking thing. Or if we want to tax this corporation, change the corporate tax rates to this, it should be its own separate thing and not a shit ton of rider bills. Because then what happens, right, is they drop these fucking rider bills on these politicians like 3 hours before they're supposed to vote. 2,000 pages of a fucking rider bill that's been attached to it so they can bring it to the floor. Huh?
What one human came up with that?
Fucking politicians.
It's just a bunch of convoluted nonsense. You don't want to simple it down and boil it down and give more power to the people?
I do want more power to the people. But I think bringing every single thing to the people to vote for.
Not every single thing, but
then
more
where do you
things.
Draw the line, right?
That's a discussion to be had.
Yeah, exactly. So where do you draw the line? Like if you draw the line at, like we're going to draw a line at F, right? There's going to be a bunch of people that you didn't draw the line at fucking G. Or there's going to be a bunch of people that think you should have drawn the line at E, right? So the problem is we have such a massive fucking mix of culture in America of different people and different views.
People don't really want that much different stuff.
Huh?
That's like a fallacy. Like, there's all these different cultures, so many different people. It would be hard to please everybody. It would not be hard to please everyone.
It would be hard to please everybody.
No, it would not.
The fuck it wouldn't.
No.
How?
You have good education, good healthcare, good roads, and you leave everyone the fuck alone and don't tell them what to do. It's simple.
Libertarian?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's simple, but people want to...
Why aren't you not voting for a libertarian then?
Bro, I just... Bro! Give more power to the people. When you give it to these politicians and then they get in there, they don't have to... They have no accountability once they're in there.
Are you afraid that when you go vote that they're just going to put your name in the system and then you're a cuck?
I don't know. It's just like nothing's getting better with the way it's going. It's just continually getting worse.
I think that getting more people educated and get people in there to actually vote and learn what they're fucking voting for, I think that is one step. It's not the solve. It's not the fix, the all-time fix, but it is a step to a better system.
But that requires reading and having to go to shit and all that stuff, Donnie.
And it requires getting an ID and shit.
Here's what needs to be done is like the little airplane thing. Just here you go.
Sponsored by
Put a
McDonald's.
little candy in it, and here there's your truth serum.
We're on our way to like. You ever seen Idiocracy?
We live in it now.
Sponsored by Brondo.
Those Crocs are real life now. Like we're already halfway into the movie. We're on the like halfway mark.
No one thought when that movie came out it'd be a fucking documentary.
Dude, it's to the point now where it's like I get what you're saying. Like there's like I hate politics personally, just because it's like I get where it's there. I think it's needed, just like we do need a government, because otherwise this place would be run amok, right? There has to be some kind of like a system in place, right? But
you're right, and there has to be, right, and we may not have hit that system yet.
Who had the perfect system? Like it was it the Greeks? It wasn't the Romans? Because I mean they pretty much killed everybody for fun.
The Roman Empire kind of turned into the Vatican.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is like,
it turned into
has there ever been a point where it was just utopia?
Yeah.
Like when was that? Has there ever been a place, like a time on Earth where everything was just chill as fuck? Like, was it before humans even existed?
No, I don't think so. Because like I said, right now we're in what's called the Great Peace. It's about 70 plus years where there hasn't been a major war.
Yeah.
Right. So if you go through back human history, there hasn't been this time period. Right. Now, is our political system good? Is it the right political system? I don't know.
There's no perfect. It's not gonna be perfect.
It may be the right one for now.
Yeah.
But you look at all the other ones, right? And everyone tries all the other ones. You got communism, federal communism. You got republics. You got democracies. You got monarchies, and you got all these other little political systems all around, dictatorships and all this stuff, right? And it's easy for us to sit back as a republic and be like, dictatorship is the wrong thing to do, know. And morally, probably, it is the fucking wrong thing to do. Is a monarch the right thing to do? It existed for so fucking long, and it still exists in one country, or I think there's a couple countries still use monarchy, right? But it's so it works for them.
Right.
But there could be a time in the next 50, 100,000 years when all of a sudden we have a political system that everyone sits back and they're like, this is fucking working. It's going good. It's doing good, right? And that's how you build empires, right? We've been building an empire, the American empire, for a while, essentially. And if we could have a fucking time machine and go into the future and look at a history book in 1,000 years, it may be like, there's the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, and the American Empire, and then we may fucking collapse in 2026. We don't know. Right. Now we can just do little things along the way to try to fucking sustain our empire. But statistically speaking, the empire is going to fucking fall and it's going to be replaced by something else. We don't know what that next thing is going to be. And it could be it could fall and pure democracy could show up tomorrow morning and then it'd be the perfect fucking thing in the world. And everything works. Everyone's happy. Everything's going good. Everyone's prosperous. And all of a sudden the countries start following pure democracy and everybody's just doing great. Or it could show up tomorrow and fall flat on its fucking face. Yeah. Communism is one of those ones that it's been proven time and time again. Communism cannot fucking work. Right? It just can't work. You get a bunch of pissed off people. China's making it barely fucking
China's
functional.
going down right now.
It is.
Yeah, it's going down. I think another thing to what you were saying earlier, like, to help make a change, I think as an American, we have been so spoiled that I think every person that's on this country should stay in a third world country for over just 1 weekend.
1 weekend?
1 weekend. And I don't mean Mexico. I don't mean there's parts of this in the United States. I'm not talking about those.
Sending like Abu Dhabi
I'm
or
talking about
Saudi Arabia. Like
you're going to have deep fried cow shit for lunch.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, I 100% agree, right? Because you got to look at it from the war standpoint. When's the last time war has actually touched American soil? Now, if you don't count the Twin Towers falling, that was an attack, a terrorist attack, right? But if we don't count that one...
Civil War?
No, it happened in World War II.
Oh,
right off the coast of North Carolina, we sunk a U-boat over there, and then there was an incident off of, in Washington, right? And there was a couple of small ones. There's still some places you can go off the East Coast.
But those are skirmishes, not wars.
No, it was during a war. But that's the last time
okay.
I
thought you meant like an actual war.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
That's the last time a battle of a part of a war has touched our soil.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't really happen.
No.
Then you go back in time, you got World War One, there was literally big things, and you got, you got the Civil War is really the major last one. War of 1812 before that one. You got some, big ones. But then you look at some of these countries where they've been in perpetual war for hundreds, if not thousands of fucking years. The Middle East has been in perpetual war constantly for thousands of years. And you're right. You sit back here and look at here and this is it right here. We have the freedom to have this fucking podcast right now and discuss these things, and some government official isn't kicking in our door and beheading us.
Right.
You do that shit in Iran, and they'll take you outside, bury you in the ground up to your neck, and stone you to fucking ass to death. You know, you have an opinion that you can sit there and say, I don't like Joe Biden, I don't like Donald Trump, I don't like Bill Clinton or George Bush or Obama, and tomorrow morning you're going to wake up just fine. You go to North Korea and say you don't like Kim Jong-un, that motherfucker's going to have you strung up and shot with a fucking anti-aircraft gun.
I hate him.
You know?
I really hate him. And it's not even him. I just hate his fucking hair. It is the
That's one of the
thing.
5 approved haircuts over there, by the way.
That is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah, but see, and you're right. We do have this entitlement here. We do live under this blanket of this warm blanket of freedom and democracy and things. Is it a perfect blanket? No. Does it have holes in it? Absolutely.
Right.
But we still live in that, and it goes back to things like the poverty levels, right? Even our poorest people over here are richer than almost most of the people in the fucking world. Right? We live under this thing, and it's great. But is it the right way? I don't know yet. We don't know. We won't know for another 100, 200, 300 years that this is going to be good.
Right.
It could collapse.
The other thing too is like, when you start giving power to the people, I mean, it can get really dangerous very quickly.
Oh, it can, because power corrupts. Logan, you're very much into the whole thing of power corrupts. We've had these conversations before.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like, what's funny too is like in the midst of all that, what ends up happening is one person comes up, right? And everyone's like, oh yeah. And then guess who that person is? Hitler. And then it goes, oh, son, now it's a dictatorship. But it wasn't supposed to be that.
Well, you form all your cliques and your groups and stuff, right?
But there's always that one, like...
I mean, look at unions.
Yeah. There's always... But
I fucking hate unions.
You know what I mean?
Don't you think if the power's more decentralized, that's like way less likely to happen versus now? It's like if the people are voting, and especially voting on things in their area, and the person in charge of your area lives in your area,
right?
And everyone, it's like localized government. It would be super less likely, because when somebody gets a big head and starts doing that shit, it's gonna affect everyone close, and everyone's gonna know where the fuck he lives and who he hangs out with and what he does. They'll just go grab that motherfucker and snatch him out and get someone else in.
Well, they do that in Haiti.
No,
they do that in Haiti.
In Libya.
Yeah.
Don't you want to do that if shit starts getting rough for a few years? We just go snatch this motherfucker.
No, because what ends up happening is you do that, and then who's not to say they're gonna turn on you. Saying something, because you want to stand up and be different. And they're like, no, fuck you too. We're gonna kill you.
No, they want the person that's gonna have it smooth. When shit's smooth, they're all cool.
Yeah, but you know what? And what you're talking about is kind of what we were founded on. We were founded on what's called a citizen statesman, right? That meant that you would go. This worked really well when we were small colonies.
It works really well all the time. They just convince you it doesn't.
But hear me out.
Just like a woman staying at home and the man working in a 2-family household, they convince you that doesn't work either. They convince you all these fucking lies. Oh, it would never work that way.
No, I didn't say it wouldn't work that way. It worked just fine for fucking decades.
But you're like, it wouldn't work that way anymore. It still would.
The population was not as massive as we are now, right? But that's what we're founded on. It's like, if you lived in Pennsylvania at the time, let's just go back into the pre-Civil War, right? Texas had a population of 30,000 people, right? Now our population is 35, 40 million people, right? Okay. And it worked really well back then because you had a lot smaller group of people you had to reach out to, right, to be elected. And so you would go in and say, hey, you know what, I want to run for the House of Representatives or Congress or even presidency or governor or whatever, right? And you go out there and you talk to the people. And then you would go and get elected, and if they elected you and they liked you, they elected you to a position of power, and you got in that position of power. And then you would listen to these people and be like, hey, yeah, you know what, we're going to raise the price of root beer by 25 cents. And if it pissed everybody off, right, you would finish your term out and you'd have to go back and live with fucking paying 25 cents more for root beer, and you'd be like, oh, fuck, that was the wrong thing to do. Yeah. And they'd put someone else in. And really, up until it was really recent, and I'd probably say the past 40, 50 years, that citizen statesman thing, because there was never really term limits. Term limits didn't happen until the 1940s, right? When Roosevelt was president for 4 fucking times, right? And he finally died in the office. That's after that happened. They were like, we need to put term limits on the presidency. But they should have put term limits on everything else, because even then you had along congressmen and senators and things like that. They would go do these 2 or 3 terms, and then they would leave and go home. But now all of a sudden you turn around and look, and you got politicians that have been in for 30, 40, 50 years. We have a politician that is still in when Jim Crow laws were allowed, right? And you can't tell me that motherfucker isn't racist, right? And didn't do racist shit. And we all know morally racism's fucking wrong. But you have someone that's an elected official and keeps getting fucking elected when he was around and voted for fucking Jim Crow laws, right? Why has he not been replaced? You know, is it maybe there's not another person that is a well enough adversary, or maybe that guy's just got too much money and can just plaster his fucking name everywhere. Brand recognition, right? You know, like Nike and Adidas.
That was a problem in Texas. Like back in the day, they hired a lot of the politicians back in the day were actually like Ku Klux Klan members, but they were voted right in. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, but that was the majority. You know what I mean? That was the majority. So that was the people, and the majority of the people that voted were Klans members themselves. So it's like there is power in voting. You know, I mean, it goes to show like there's stuff that can be done. It's just how many people are actually going out there. Of the people, I would be interested in seeing like in your county. I know in mine, like if we were to do like the amount of people that voted versus the people that live there, dude, it's like not even like probably like maybe 20% of people that actually live there and went out and voted. We
could do that right now. Hayes County population is 255,397 people as of 2021.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting because it's like, if you really do, you know.
I feel like that's a huge cop out.
What's that?
It would be better if y'all went and voted. It's like.
Well, yeah. I mean, at some point.
That's a weak argument.
You don't think voting matters at all?
I didn't say that, but I don't think things would be better if more people voted.
I mean, you would at least get a good idea of what.
If there's two choices and more people vote, that's just going to influence us. You still only have two choices.
Right, but it depends on what the topic is or what it is. Like, do you want this road fixed or do you not?
Yeah,
those are two choices.
I'm more or less talking about like when we're picking people like for a position to represent.
Well, there's more than two people, but when it comes down,
but
to
you
like,
see what I'm saying? There's only so many choices, and they're all slimy. So it's like
right.
There's four candidates. Which will I choose? But if there slime ball 1, 2, 3, or 4, like.
Yeah, I mean,
if you would have voted, we would have picked slime ball 3 instead of 2. Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
it's just like, bro, come on, bro.
And
okay, so 225,000 people, or what 255 is what I said, right? Okay, and this thing goes by precinct, and I think it has totals at the bottom. Hold on a sec, because there's a lot of information here.
Yeah, I'm always interested in like those stats because I know like for a fact when I think it was Williamson County when we were voting or whatever, like I mean there were some people, of course there's people that are gonna come out and vote, like, you know, but the other thing is just like I don't think people really exercise their rights to vote the way that they should.
Who cares?
The people that voted, that's who cares too. I mean, what is not voting accomplishing?
It's letting everyone know that I'm not okay with what's going on, and I'm not gonna be like, you can't ever tie me in with like.
But that's no different than a guy that just didn't care.
There you go. Ready?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not saying it's not.
In the census in 2021, there's 255,000 people in Hayes County. All right, registered to vote was 167,000.
There you go.
That actually voted was.
So over half the people are registered.
89,000.
Bro, come on. That's what I'm talking about.
There's a little bit over half of people.
Bro, seriously.
So a third of the people voted?
Third of the people voted.
So what?
So what if you could get the other third in there? Or the other
What would it change? What would it change?
Whatever
it could change.
Yeah, what you're complaining about, the shit that
we would have picked another slime ball.
Yeah, hey, if there's a better slime ball and that's going to do a change, why not?
Then people picked another slime ball.
And y'all are saying
together.
like y'all don't even trust people. Y'all were saying y'all don't trust people in direct democracy. Hold on, you're not trusting people in a direct democracy, but you want more of those people to vote on our representatives and the stuff we do vote on. You're like, I don't trust those people. We had a direct democracy and we actually decided. People are too dumb to decide.
People
but I want
vote,
those. I want more of those dumb people that I don't trust. I want more of y'all to come vote the way we have it now. Do y'all trust these people or not?
Look, I just said
you're confusing two different things here, bud.
No,
right?
do you trust the society to vote or not? Are they stupid or not?
Yeah, society's dumb as shit.
So why do you want more of them to turn out to vote if they're fucking retards?
So they just shut the fuck up about who gets elected office since it's their own fucking fault. How are you gonna bitch? How are you gonna?
Y'all
bitch
are the ones who
complain?
want a higher voter turnout under this current system, correct?
Huh?
Y'all too are the ones who are arguing for a higher voter turnout under
my point was
system.
that nobody votes. So if you want,
you're saying that because you want a higher voter turnout.
Well, yeah, it's like it's a big deal.
But if all the people, I'm advocating for a different voter system where they're giving more of the power to the people, and I think that would drive more people. Hold on, that would drive more people to vote. And you're like, well, I don't want us to do direct democracy because people are too stupid to decide what to vote on. If you think the general population is fucking too stupid to decide what to vote on, why do you want more of them to turn out to vote right now?
So to go back to his root beer analogy, right?
You can't just answer that question.
To go back to his root beer analogy, if only 86,000 people, right, out of the big county, right, if they said we do want to increase that, wouldn't that piss you off? If the total population was to each
that
get
happens
their
now though, the majority decide on stuff or whatever, or the lawmakers pass stuff that I don't like, and I just have to eat.
Right, and if you said, "Hey, we should not raise the root beer price and vote for me," so that way we don't do that, huh?
What's your point?
Nobody's gonna like you again. You were talking about
You didn't make a point.
What do you mean? You weren't listening. You're over here telling me you want to give each person the right to vote, right? Mm-hmm. And I just said, if only 86,000 people said, yes, we want to increase the root beer thing, but you're like, fuck that, dude. Not everybody voted.
My thing is, well, you're not addressing the argument of y'all want more people to vote, but y'all think people are too stupid to decide on things. You didn't address that. And my thing is, if we gave people, if it was more of a direct democracy, and we voted on more stuff, that would get more people to come out and vote. That's the theory.
Do you think people are stupid?
You're not addressing whether or not you.
I asked you your own question. Do you think people are stupid?
Y'all gotta answer it first. You don't want to answer
yes.
it first. This motherfucker doesn't want to answer it first. He wants me to answer it first.
I asked you. I said, do you
That's
think...
like, you're dumb. No, you're dumb.
Want to answer the question.
You don't either. You didn't.
I said yes.
That.
I told you if we were to run amok and let people do whatever, we'd be a shit show. I'm asking you. Do you think the general people are stupid? Yes or no?
So you want more people to vote?
Goddamn.
Okay, so
I literally asked him a question, and he's answered.
We've answered our question.
Yeah.
I think
so you're the only one who has.
I think they are at a level where they can't decide important things like war and.
It's not what I asked. I said, do you think that people are stupid?
Yes.
Okay.
But if the majority of stupid people want to vote and decide on stuff, the majority rules.
I think
right. That's my point.
Okay.
So
here again,
both kind of
you admitted that
the same
most people
thing
are dumb. Why do you want more of these dumb people to vote?
Why do you?
Because at least give it to the people.
But the thing is, the people have the power now to go out and vote for these representatives.
But
and
they get they elect the representative, and then the representative has at least give it to the people to decide. Don't let the people decide on a representative. Hold on.
Why
don't let
the representative?
Right now, we let the people decide on a representative, and then he does whatever he wants. Just let them decide on said topics.
Okay. Why even have the representative?
I'm there with you. Why?
Yeah, because like if you boiled it down,
we need probably less representation, and they need a lot less responsibility with what they fucking do, and a lot less pay. Let's yank their pay down to like $50,000 a fucking year, and instead of voting on, I don't even know. I need to do more research on what they vote on. But instead of voting on 100% of their current votage, let's get them down like where they're voting on like 50% of what they currently vote on, and give some of that. To us.
I'm not mad at that. Yeah, I agree with that.
That sounds fair.
Because they get in there and they get rich.
But see, well,
and then they're rich, and then they're influencing the lives of these people, like we were saying earlier. They can barely get by. Well, they're rich. It's like, no, motherfucker. It's almost like that guy. He was accepting the lowest role in his company. Mm-hmm. It's like, you should almost be making like the average of your constituents, or what the fuck is going on? Mm-hmm. You're a fat cat, and we're all broke.
And I agree on that.
And you influence how our life goes.
I agree on that. But you know what's crazy is that our representatives and like our mayors and things like that, you know, our governors and stuff,
right,
their salary isn't that fucking high, right? Where they get rich is
bribes and stuff.
Well,
because they're in charge of so fucking much.
Insider trading.
We'll not say bribes, but
whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Nancy
they
Pelosi.
get campaign contributions and stupid shit like that,
favors
kickbacks and lobbying and all
Right.
kinds of other stuff. And it's like, you know, how does a president go into going to being a president? And he's getting $400,000 a year is what I believe the last presidential salary is, like $400,000. How is he coming out a $100, $200, $300 million net worth?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and that's
books,
exactly what
it's the
fucking Bush family, the Clinton family, fucking every president. I think there's only one president in recent time that lost a shit ton of money, and that was Donald Trump. You know, he went from like $40 billion down to like $20 billion.
But granted, he was already
a billionaire. So like, I'm not gonna shed any tears for his ass. Like, I really don't care. You know, he can go wipe my tears with his $100 bill for all I give a shit. You know, but you know, like, that's part of the thing where I was saying, you know, you get that shit out of politics, and now all of a sudden you're not going to have career politicians in there. You got people that are going to be in there because they want to be in there, not to make money, but because they want to do better stuff. It's the same thing as like a cop, a police officer, a teacher, right?
Which those people need to get a little bit more. They don't even make crazy banks, but all those people.
Oh, absolutely.
Nurses are making pretty good, but like teachers and cops and firefighters
and military like and things like that.
But it all depends on the location, though. You got to remember, they should.
It all depends on the location, but they all need just like a little bit.
They do
more
because those are the type of people, right? They don't go get that job for the money. They get the job because they are good-hearted people, right? And then we can say that, like, hey, yes, there are bad cops out there. Absolutely. We talked about the 10-80-10 rule before, right?
There's just bad people in everything.
There's bad people in any profession. It doesn't matter what it is, right? But for the most part, these people start out, you know, and they want to be a teacher because they want to teach kids, right? And they're aware that salary is $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and it's not a shit ton of money, right? Cops are the same thing. They want to go out and serve and protect their community, and they're aware that salary is like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, whatever it is, military, so on and so forth, right? And it's more looked at as a civil service, and you know, to make you feel good about yourself that you're contributing to society. And I do agree with you that these people don't make enough money, right? You know, I was in the military for a fucking long ass time. I didn't make shit for money, but it was you were doing something for the greater good of the people. Cops are the same way. They wake up that morning, they put their fucking body armor on, knowing that could be the last day that they literally stop a dude for a broken taillight and get a fucking 9mm to the face. You know, teacher knows going into that goddamn school that to teach these kids that she's got to deal with fucked up parents that just are raising entitled little pricks, with Karens and fucking what's the male equivalent of a Karen? Was it a Ken or something like that? A Chad? I can't remember. There's so many fucked up names. Like,
we'll say Edgar.
We'll say Edgar. Fuck it, right? They're dealing with these Karen and Edgars, or these Karen and Davids, Karen and Steves, or whatever. Todd. There's so many of them, right? Yeah. But they're dealing with these parents, and then there's also the whole thing of the system doesn't give a shit about them, and they're buying fucking school supplies out of their own personal money to teach these kids, right? Or they're fucking they have to worry about a school getting shot up and shit, right? You know, and that's a pretty stressful. And you're only making $40,000 fucking dollars a year. Yeah. Like, for fuck's sakes, you know? It's like Geneva and I, we donate a lot of money to various schools around here, right? We, through our philanthropy and stuff, we donate a little bit of money to schools to help out, you know, and our kids' teachers. We usually take the entire teachers, like, Amazon wish list and buy that entire Amazon wish list and give it to them, right?
I buy popcorn.
Popcorn, you fucking lazy bitch.
That popcorn's like $50 a bag. Fuck that, dude. I don't do that shit.
But yeah, we do those things to help our teachers out, right? You know, and I think the government itself has failed on that, right? And it's being, the burden of that's being put on the community, which I agree with the burden that should be put on the community, right? I don't think my tax-paying dollars should go to Austin ISD to teach those kids. I like it being local. Then there's the whole Robin Hood program where they're taking money from this district and moving down the district because they're poor. I get that and stuff, you know, and it's kind of a necessary thing. What I don't agree on is that the government has all but abandoned these fucking people, right? You know, and it's just left them to fucking fend for themselves and left the community. Like, okay, cool. If you want to put that burden on the community, then fuck off with my taxes, right? Leave my goddamn taxes alone. Let me have that burden where my money's going to go. And I think that
Shouldn't we vote on that shit?
We should.
We do. Why do you think we have these badass football teams? Shit. You think we... Oh, I'm sorry. This is Texas. We put our football system before our education.
And we still have some shitty teams.
Well, that's not true. We did... Who won state? I think it was Katie. Who knows? But that's where I kind of get it all fucked up. It's like, you know, there will be high schools that they will pump literally $200,000 into their football program, and they give like scraps to the teachers.
Yeah, which is kind of stupid, right? Because look, I get it. Sports and being healthy and running around, my fat ass has no reason to tell people how much they need to run, but people do need to, you know, exercise more, right? And I get that, getting a healthier body. What I don't agree on is that there's programs that suffer because of the football programs, right? And I get it. The football programs do bring in a lot of money to the schools, right? There's kind of a, you know, there's kind of a balance there somewhere. But when all of a sudden you start saying, hey, we're not doing art no more, and music and STEAM stuff, you know, like science, technology, education, mathematics, like, dude, look, your chance of when you are born to become an NFL fucking, just to get on an NFL team, not even as a fucking superstar, not even like Brady and Mahomes and all that shit, is so astronomically fucking stupid that why are we pumping this much money into it? Right. More than likely, those kids that are growing up, They're going to be our next engineers. They're going to be the nerds. Like me and you grew up in the same generation. You did too, right? And we always made fun of the fucking nerds. Like, oh, if you're not playing football, you're a nerd. And we picked on them. Now all of a sudden, them motherfuckers, we're sitting here not making shit, busting our asses. And those guys went to engineering school, and now they're making hundreds of $1,000s a year as a nerd, or they're doctors, or they're scientists, or they're chemists, and things like that.
Revenge of the nerds.
Yeah, exactly. And they're making all the fucking money. And we have deprived those programs of that shit. But then also, we got to watch out for an overcorrection. Let's say we can't just go in and say, okay, fuck football. It's not going to, produce a bunch of people in the world, they're good. So we're not going to start funding them, but we're going to start funding science and technology, education and math and all that stuff. And we're going to fund those. Well, all of a sudden now you're going to look in the future and you're going to have 400,000 fucking mathematicians and none of them get a goddamn job.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in the trade industry, right? In the 80s and 90s, you weren't shit unless you had a college degree. They forced college down our fucking throats. You had to go to college. You had to go to college. And then all of a sudden it was like you got looked down upon because you were a plumber, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, you look at he's over here fucking shoving his hand down a toilet to clear a clog.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, you know how much the plumbers make?
I heard there was a study the other day. I should look it up, and maybe I'll drop the info when we post this. I'll post a little thing right here. There was a study, and I'll get the link again on who did it and like what publication, but it was saying there's a thought that companies are gonna maybe start getting rid of their requirement for bachelor degrees.
Yes.
You saw that too?
I've read some like news snippets about it.
Yeah, and it's not nothing solid yet, but it's like they're thinking about it because maybe
I don't know what the favor of that.
Yeah.
I think you should be. I think because I think you should be valued on your knowledge and
because
not
here's the thing,
your degree.
No one really gives a fuck about
kind of a degree.
No one gives it a fuck about it.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, so I think
everyone would rather have someone with work experience that shows up on time every day than a college degree.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They're like, you've been doing this 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
You showed up and you held the job. I want you. Yeah. Versus the college kid.
Take this for example, right? Right? Would you're an electrician, so would you value
an apprentice first year? I want to make sure everybody knows.
Okay, but even as a first year apprentice, would you value, let's say you were a business owner, you owned your own electrical company. Would you value a first year apprentice that's got work experience, pulling wire, making up plugs, and all that stuff? Would you value the guy that just read it in a book?
That was like. But could he perform?
You have 2 employees.
So with no experience, but he could read the book back and forth. Like he knows the NEC, but like the
not NEC. You got 2 guys,
okay,
right, that are both applying for a job.
Okay.
One guy.
Let's say you're a restaurant owner. Been chef for 4 years. Just got a Le Cordon Bleu.
Which one you hire?
Chef.
Exactly. Who gives a shit if he went to Cordon Bleu?
We want someone that's experienced.
He's got experience running an actual kitchen.
Yeah.
Same thing in like your profession right here.
He bounced around kitchen to kitchen. Like, oh, maybe this guy's shady. Yeah. But he's like, I worked for the restaurant for 4 years, and the owner died, and now I'm looking.
I think when it comes to here's the thing. So I know some people they go with the
experience should always trump a degree.
And it usually does.
It should. But the problem is like sometimes it's like, what if they've been in the thing for 4 years, but they've been on the first ladder, the rung on the ladder the whole time. And at the point, it's like, well,
I mean, you gauge them in the interview, you ask
questions.
But
I mean, we're talking about positions that don't require necessarily a degree. But if I wanted to go to like a surgeon, like there's degrees for specific things.
Oh yeah, like doctors and things like that.
Right. So that's
got it.
Yeah.
Doctors, teachers. Right.
But like you don't need a 4 year to be a social worker, and they require that right now. And there's like a lack of social workers, and that's what my mom did. And like, yeah, you just it's like it's a thing where again they're underpaid and all this stuff, but like they require a 4 year degree, and it's like. You don't need a 4 year degree to be a child CPS or APS, which is Adult Protective Services. Yeah. Like to go out and check on old people and see if they're being abused. You don't need a 4 year. Right. It's like keeping people out of that
shit
job.
Can be taught on the job.
Right.
OJT.
Just be compassionate, not an idiot. You know when someone's being abused or worked over, and or their child's using them to get their Social Security. It's not hard to see when shit's out of line.
You got those red flags.
I think
boom, boom.
Some of the businesses that I know that require a degree, it's like we want to see if they have some sense of accomplishment as to what they've done before. And I think it's a good and a bad way of looking at it, right? Because it's like, man, if this guy stuck it out for 4 years or 6 years and he's got his masters and stuff like that, then he's pretty competent in his position.
Yeah.
But if it's some dude that got his GED that fell out of the fucking shithole, it's like, well. Do we really want him doing this, or somebody? But it's a position that.
But there's always extenuating circumstances, right? And just judging. That's kind of what I hate about like the hiring process, right? You got a resume, and you're looking at the resume, and you're like, wow, this guy he has a bachelor's in electrical engineering and this, and he's applying to be a journeyman at the company, right? And also you look at this guy. and he's got company, and you're like, and he's only got a GED. Why? Right? What's the extenuating circumstances? Did he make a mistake when he was in high school and get a DUI, or did he knock up some chick when he was 17 years old and had to immediately go into the workforce? Right? You know, and that you kind of start finding stuff out in the interview process. You start kind of talking to them, and then granted, yes, sometimes you're gonna find that diamond in the fucking rough, that unicorn, and sometimes you're gonna find that guy's just a piece of shit, bouncing from job to job to job. You know, like same fucking thing, just job. You know, and just didn't really like fit in anywhere. You know, and then you got you know people that like a great example, right? He used to work a long time.
Should we want to? I gotta bounce soon too.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to finish up?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll let him come back.
Yeah.
So this is episode 6. We'll let Donnie come back and we'll round out. But I feel like it was a good episode. I feel like we didn't get as much like specific topics. But we'll definitely have Donnie back on again. And whenever there's stuff like the wars popping off or something happens with the economy or something, I feel like this is kind of like the introduction. Introduce him to the show. Then next time, well, whenever, but like if there's relevant stuff, we'll really be able to dive into specific said topic. Y'all kind of know his army background and where he's from kind of now. So next time I feel like we'll be better like, okay, boom topics. Let's debate, go back and forth, get his opinion on them.
Yeah.
But anything you want to say kind of before we round out?
No, not really.
Vote.
I think
just go out and
Josh?
vote.
Anything you want to say?
No, I mean this was a good conversation. Like each of the episodes that we've done already, you know, again, there's a lot of disagreements on both ends or whatever.
It's good
and this is what I like about it, is because you know, again, these are talks that some people are afraid to have.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be transparent with what they think or what they want to say, and this podcast has really been instrumental in doing that. And again, it's you know, Logan and I, we don't see eye to eye on things, you know, just like anybody else. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to have that conversation, you know, and it's got to be, you know, you don't punch people or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's I think that's good. Kate, that's a good point right there. You know, have open dialogue.
Right.
To have those discussions, right, without fear of retribution or things like that. You know, you could have an exact opposite view of something I have. But to have an open dialogue and not get into a screaming match or a punching match over it, right? I think that would solve a lot of problems we have in America. You know, I think that would solve a lot of issues if we actually sat down, had open dialogues about our feelings and our views, our opinions, our point of views, things like that. And I think if people came into those things with an open mind and had an open dialogue, I think that would solve a lot of our issues here, because you would find that a lot of people in America all just want the same thing, man. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy, we want to be prosperous, we want our friends and family to be healthy, happy, and prosperous, and we just want that. And there's a few on the far left and far right that just want chaos.
Right.
And you know, if you drown those out with what they call the silent majority, that 80% in the middle I keep talking about, right? I think if we all came together, problems would be solved a lot quicker.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Donnie, appreciate you joining us, man.
Well, I'm sorry we maybe had to cut it a little short. I felt like we could have gone for like another hour.
Oh, we easily could have.
But we'll have Donnie on again. So, and like I said, every week we're trying to make improvements. If y'all have any topics you like, disliked, any ideas, any constructive criticism for the next episode, holler at us.
Yeah.
Do you think next week just chill, or are we going to have another guest? What are you thinking?
We'll flip a coin.
Flip a coin?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm still waiting for Donald Trump to respond to my DM. So
I tell you what, it's gonna be the greatest podcast in the world.
Yeah.
I don't do anything
Ever.
that's not great.
Yeah.
Ever. I touch it, it's gold.
All right, well, I guess we're out. Where's the smoke? Episode 6.
Shake it to the bass. This that what is love. Syntax boys, no girls love drugs. Say lil' ma, connect me with the plug. She bad as shit. Tricks so when they cash it. I can't really tell, but I think she an African. Oh goddamn, I discovered and mastered it. She working with devil.